What is a patriot? A patriot is someone that loves Christ, country, and their family and neighbors. Someone who is willing to stand up for what's right. Although there may be a cost to them, someone who has overcome fear, because fear is of Satan, willing to go the extra mile to do and show what's right. The only reason I'm on YouTube is because of God. I feel it is my destiny, my duty to do and say the things God shows me, or else I'm of no good to God at all. All patriots must stand up or risk losing God, country, and family. This is all of our destiny, to do God's work. Thanks to all who watch my videos. But remember, it's not about us, but about our children, our country, our God. Thank you. And hello once again, everybody. Hope everybody's having a great night. If you're not, we'll get one. Good to see all you guys. Welcome. Oh, there's I haven't believe I've seen Mr. Starsky Mooney before. Welcome, Starsky. Good to see you. I'm earlier. Any coffee ready? Well, I got some, but it'd be kind of hard sticking it through the screen here, you know. Good to see you, Starsky. Welcome. Miss Mindersue, welcome there. Good to see you, girl. I know you said you'd be back, and I hope you'll be back. Hello, Miss Mindersue. Amy Niana, hello, Amy. Good to see you. She's after coffee, too. I'm going to have to get a pot here, ain't I? Welcome, Amy. Good to see you. Awaken Trillium is here. Hello, Awaken. Good to see you. Did you bring some coffee? Let's see here. Miss Karen Reese. Hello, Karen. Good to see you, girl. And love you too, Miss Karen. Oh, buddy JM is here. What's up, JM? Good to see you, brother. Welcome, JM. MLP is here. Hello there, MLP, and welcome, girl. Good to see you. Hit Girl is here. Hello, Hit Gal. I said Hit Girl. I meant Hit Gal. Welcome, Hit Gal. Good to see you. Sharon Steinspring. Hello, Miss Sharon. Good to see you, too. Welcome, Sharon. The beautiful Chrissy Cat is here. Hello, Chrissy. Welcome, girl. Good to see you. Richard Price is here. Hello, Richard. Good to see you, brother. Chris Gilbert. Hello, Chris. Good to see you. Let's see who else we got here. Got anybody else? Anybody? Oh, there's my brother, Big Chap. What's going on, Chap? Good to see you. A good question. Did y'all hit the like? If you didn't, you got to hit the like. Hit it like you owned it, or like you hate it, one or the other, or both. Let's see here. The beautiful Salt and Light is here. Hello, Salt. Welcome, girl. Good to see you. Welcome, Salt. Right on, chap. Right on, brother. Chessboard is here. What's up, Chessboard? Good to see you. Welcome, Chessboard. Angel Rose. Hello there, Angel Rose, and welcome. Good to see you. Annalisa, good to see you, Annalisa, and welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Miss Sharon Mercier. Hello, Sharon. Welcome. Good to see you. Man, I think I'm fixing to turn the air conditioner on here. It is already getting hot. So I don't know what it is about this place. It's either too hot or too cold all the time. I can't seem to get it right. You know, I can't get in the groove. Lord have mercy, I'm going to have a heart attack here. Queen Bee is here. My goodness gracious, I ain't seen her in a month of Sundays or longer. Hello, Queen Bee, and welcome back, girl. Good to see you. You got a strike today. For what, Chap? Chap finally got a strike. I bet that makes him sicker than a dog. I know it does. It's definitely great to see you back, Queen. Very good to see you back. Welcome. Let's see here. Lee Seiler. Hello, Lee. Welcome, brother. Good to see you. The middle of Michigan. Another Michigander. Man, I'll tell you what. I think everybody, or at least half the people in here, are from Michigan. Welcome, Lee. Ain't nothing wrong with Michigan, believe me. I mean, I'm happy to have all you folks. Says we're getting pounded by a big ass storm right now. The sirens are going off in the town next to mine. Well, that ain't what got you the strike, is it? Just messing with you, Chap. No, be safe there, brother. Keep you on that weather. Seriously. Let's see. Miss Sharon Smith. What's going on, Sharon? Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I tell you what, my nose has been running now for a week, and it just won't stop. I don't know if it's allergies or what, but I sure wish it would knock that stuff off. Let's see. Chap, you said you got a strike. Was it for not being on enough or what? And the reason I asked that is because if that's the case, I might be getting another one here pretty soon. I certainly hope not. Michigan handed Nikki her behind today. Well done, y'all. Right on. Right on. Well, maybe she'll go on home and behave herself now, you think? I doubt it, but, you know, anything's possible. Estua. Hello, Estua, and welcome, girl. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I got a strike because of a community post. Really? Darn, boy, that must have been a bad one. Now, that one, I don't guess I wouldn't have seen it if you got a strike on it. But sorry to hear that, Chap. But, hey, that just goes to show you're living right. That's all. I mean, you know, if you hadn't been living right, you wouldn't have got it. And that way, then you would know you was living wrong. The community post with a picture of, oh. Well, that shouldn't have, just that in and of itself shouldn't have got you one. But I got to ask something, Ben, as you brought him up. Wasn't it wonderful that the earth is rid of one more evil dude? As far as I'm concerned, it is. But that's all in the, and I had it up here. I was going to talk about it a little tonight anyway, but hey, we can talk about it right now. You know, with that guy, well, I guess he would have been the head evil guy in the world, as near as I could tell anyway, because I think most of them, you know, have either gone by the wayside, not all of them, but a good many of them have gone by the wayside, or you know, they well, I better shut up. Not say anymore right there. Let's see. I put Big Chap Stephen Ronnie on notify all. Right on, hit gal. Right on. Let's see, Miss Karen says, Chap wearing for big storms tonight also. Can't wait. I left thunderstorms over this rain. Yeah, as long as they ain't trying to blow your butt away. Well, he wasn't too untouchable. Not for God, anyway. God came down and yanked his butt right off the planet, didn't he? Thank you, God. And I'm serious. Kiss off. Kiss Off, the beautiful Kiss Off is here. Welcome, Kiss Off. Good to see you. Now, you sexy devil. I'm going to get you some glasses one of these days, Kiss Off. I promise. One way or the other. Nah, Nikki's not going anywhere. Can't pull the clothes out of the machine in the middle of the cycle. Well, you can. They might still be a little damp, but you can. And you got to admit, she is kind of what they call all wet. At least I think she is. The Deal for Real is here. Hello, The Deal. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good to see you. Let's see. Just reading the comments, y'all. That's all for right now, anyway. But I think I've got a good video. I think y'all gonna like this one I played now. And I hope you like them all. But I got one that I know Chap and I talked about it a lot, several months ago. And we'll see if he remembers. And I'm sure he does. But anyway, I'll get to that here in a minute. Justin Rose. Hello, Justin, and welcome. Good to see you. Got to be from Texas with that Longhorn on there. Got to be. Just got to be. I think you're probably right, Chrissy Cat. Could very well be. But the question is who's she a plant for? The good guys or the bad guys? And I think it's the bad guys myself, but I guess we'll find out one of these days. Which, myself, I don't think it's going to be a lot longer. I mean, there's just too many things going on in the world right now for it to wait or to last much longer, all this crap we're in right now. But I'm not making any predictions. I'm just saying that's my opinion. I don't think it's going to be maybe 2 more months, maybe. And I think we'll start seeing a big turnaround in things. But that's just me. Maybe. I don't know. Y'all might think the same thing, but I think it's going to be, sometime around April 1st. Somewhere along there. I don't know when, but somewhere along there. All right, y'all ready to get the show started? Let me get the sword dance song up here. I think Buffering lays out on purpose, until I get past the sword song anymore. Gypsy Lizzie, what's up, Gypsy? Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome, Gypsy. All right, now, here we go. And make sure it's showing, and it is. Got to play Chap's favorite song here because I know he likes it. Of course, Kiss Off, yeah. Steve-O, welcome, brother. Butterfly, hello, Butterfly, and welcome.
snow, fly from the road. Carry on, on the road we all walk.
Love that video. I just love it. I love it. I love it because I think it's absolutely true. And it's just a good video. So thank you, Mr. Donnie T. And like, I forgot who it was said that a while ago, but come on back, Donnie T. We need you. We need you now. But I guess we'll have to wait till he gets there, whenever that is, huh? And, you know, I hate to see anybody get a strike. I got to tell you, I hate it. But it sure feels good to have company in that jail. It really does. And particularly when one of my best buddies is in there with me, Chap. So I hate that you got the strike, Chap, but I'm glad to have the company too. So hang in there, Chap. Hang in there. Hang on just a minute. I got to answer this text. All right. Let's see. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and play the next video, the one that I was just talking about, and hope like heck it don't get me one of those kicked in the butt things. But we're going to try it anyway and just see what happens. Let's see here. I think this is it right here. All right, let's see now where I'm at. And it's showing. All right, now I know once Chap sees this, I know he'll remember us talking about it. Well, we talked about it two or three times, if not more, back, 4 or 5, 6 months ago, whenever it was. But anyway, here is the story on everything. Wait a minute, let's see. What's Chap say here? He said, well, Ronnie, this will be my 5th time in jail, so it's actually kind of funny here with some of the laughers that expect me here. Well, Chap, maybe y'all just ask them to leave you in there then. You know. Hey, you might get to where you love it. You never know. All right, so now, Chap, tell me if you remember this one. I remember us talking about this. All right, so here we go. Now, it's got subtitles, so I'll have to read it. As bad as I hate to read, I'll have to do that. But here we go.
Нам стало известно, что буквально
It says, only 3 hours ago, we received new information about the former prime minister, talking about Putin, who has been taken under escort to some kind of court, Hamo-Novisky court.
3 часа назад бывшего премьер-министра под конвоем доставили в Хамовнический суд. Пресс-секретарь судьи Виктора Данилкина немного прояснила ситуацию, сообщив,
Says a spokesman for Judge Victor somebody, Elandified, I can't read that. This explained the situation a little bit by saying that today the reading of the sentence has begun. These are the justifications of 7 articles of which the former prime minister is being charged. Again, this is supposedly Putin. I'm just saying.
что сегодня началось чтение приговора. Пока зачитана только вводная часть обоснований 6-7 статей, по которым обвиняется бывший премьер-министр. В процессе чтения приговора прозвучали такие пункты.
And there he is. You can see him back there. Now, I know they can do all kinds of things with videos, so, you know, I've taken that into account too. But I'm just saying, you know, it definitely looks like him. Taking all that into account, you know, is it true? I don't know. I'm just playing a video. When reading the sentence, there are cited the charges like the theft of state property in large scale, the financial fraud, and the abuse of the authority powers.
Обвинение как хищение государственного имущества в особо крупных масштабах, финансовые махинации и превышение должностных полномочий. Завтра.
Now there he is again, right there. You can see him sitting there. It's definitely Putin. Now whether it's you know, back when all this actually happened, I don't know. But I'm just saying, you know.
Чтение обоснований по основному пункту обвинения. Бывший премьер.
The reading of the justification of the main Vladimir Putin's charge will take place tomorrow. The former prime minister is charged under the 205th article of Criminal Codex as a person who assisted in the preparation of an act of terrorism to intimidate the population and to influence the current government authorities.
Обвиняется по статье 205 Уголовного кодекса как лицо, участвовавшее в подготовке акта терроризма с целью устрашения населения и оказания воздействия на органы действующей власти.
Judge, surname, sir, defendant, Putin, Vladimir Vladimirovich, however you say, I can't say the name. Now, does that look like him there to y'all? I mean, I wish it was bigger so everybody could see it, but I don't think you can make these bigger. If you do, I don't know how to do it. All right, and Putin supposedly says judge, or the judge says nationality, and Putin says citizen of the Russian Federation. And that's it. So I thought I would show that one to get started off with, and we'll just go from there. Now, could y'all see that? Could you halfway see that is the question. I mean, I don't know if you can or not, because I'm on my laptop and I can barely see the writing, but I'm blind, so, you know. Tyne Duff. Hello, Tyne. Welcome, girl. Good to see you. Welcome, Tyne. Yes, looks like the old Pooty Poot. It does. And what the word is that, you know, back in when I think this is supposedly maybe before Trump ever took office. What the story is that the White Hats had him replaced because he wasn't a. They didn't think Putin was trustworthy, and maybe he wasn't. I mean, I don't know. I don't know Putin from Adam, so I'm just saying that it's very possible, and I thought it was worth showing. But we shall see. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. I mean, I've been hearing these stories ever since when Trump went over there to talk to him. That's when they really started surfacing. Well, let's see here. I got something else here. Oh, I hate this phone. All right. Jody Terry, hello there and welcome. Good to see you, Jody. Welcome, girl. All right, now let's see. But would it, do y'all think it would have been better? Let's say if they did know this about Putin, do you think Putin would have went ahead and went through with everything that has been gone through with now if they hadn't have replaced him? Well, I don't know. To me, it's a very good question because none of us could have possibly know that. But, just seeing that video to me was something else because, I think that it was very possible because I do remember when all the leaders after Trump left office and all the world leaders were talking to him, trying to get him not to go into Ukraine. A lot of them said it wasn't the same person. It wasn't the same Putin we've been talking to. That's what they said. It said his eyes, the look in his eyes was totally different. Everything was different. He wouldn't listen to them, period. So I'm just saying, that in today's world, I think anything is possible. But it just seems. Plus, we had the Rothschild dying yesterday. Or whenever the hell it was, I guess it's yesterday. But I got to ask myself, these people really die on the days they say they died on, or they die a couple of years ago, and they're saying just now saying they died. I don't know, but it's a question. And then you got the Pope. The Pope has had to call off appearances and everything for the second or third or fourth time in a row. I think he said a prayer the other day over there, but that's about it. Because he is sick. Then you got King Charles. He's got cancer. And all these governments that have been stepping down worldwide now for a good while. No, really? Now, I hadn't heard about that. Sorry about that. I meant to get this in here. Some guy tried to take Tucker out and he was arrested. Then, the police actually caught somebody? Wow, how'd they do that? Are they dying or going into underground bunkers? Oh, well, I think they're dying. They're dying, and the bunker they're going to, they ain't wanting to go there. I can tell you for sure. I think a lot of people fake their own death, JM says, then move on under a new identity. Oh, there's no doubt. There's a lot of them done that, JM. But as far as these guys like Putin, I don't think he would ever have done anything like that, or at least he didn't think that he would. But I guess he found out different. Yesterday, woo, I heard that, chap. But chap, are you going to be that happy too when and if the Pope finally tells us bye? And I think I will be. Maybe a little happier. One more time. Sorry about that. Van the man is here. Van the man with a gigantic, long, beautiful beard. What's up, Van? Good to see you. Watching you on a 60-inch, and I say 90% chance that was Putin. I wholeheartedly agree, Van. Wholeheartedly agree. There is suspicion that it was. And well, just think too, like I was just saying, all those people back in what 2021, I guess it was, that were talking about it not being the same Putin. Well, you know, they're the ones that knew him. So, you know, who am I to call them a liar on something like that? I don't know. All I know is the guy that's in there acting like he's Putin, in my opinion, is doing one hell of a good job for Russia. I mean, there ain't no doubt about it. I mean, here they are. You know, they've had all these sanctions put against them, and yet their economy is wearing our ass out. And they're the ones with all the, you know, sanctions put on them. Something ain't adding up. But anyway, you know, I think it's going to be the same thing, or pretty close to the same thing, with and now I'm talking about Rothschild and the way he went yesterday, and the Pope and the King. I think this is all coming up real quick myself. Y'all feel free to think I'm a nut. It ain't nothing different. I mean, from all the years past, so I don't mind being thought of as a nut. But I think I'm going to be proved to be right on this matter anyway. Some Ukraine hitman was supposed to plant explosive device under Tucker's car at the Four Seasons Hotel in Russia. So it was the Russian cops that caught him. Okay, well that figures then. I just knew if it was this cops over here, they ain't gonna hunt that hard for nobody. An hour drive from St. Louis. Golly, I'm about 14 hours away, I think. A long way is all I know. But anyway, on to the next video, I guess. Well, ain't no sense me showing that one. Let's see, because we done talked about that. Let's see what this is. Some of these, I don't know what they are until I bring them back up, because I can't see them anymore. Yeah, let me make sure it's showing. Oh, yeah. I don't know why this thing ain't showing up no better over here than it is. Damn, did it come off full screen? Nope, it's still on full screen. I don't understand what's going on with it. Anyway, this post is by Fletch, 17. He says, maybe this is why Zelensky asked Trump to come to Ukraine again. Read this carefully. Working on finding the article. According to Nathaniel Rothschild, heir to the Rothschild family fortune, without Ukraine, the global order may not survive. It ain't going to survive with or without Ukraine, but it is a big part of it. He said, did you catch that? Well, I don't know who wouldn't. This is the red alert panic call to fellow globalists saying that if the Ukraine were to fall, then so would a new world order. They are literally begging for military reinforcements from other globalist nation states to aid in saving Ukraine for the new world order agenda. This is incredibly telling, especially knowing about the U.S.-funded biolabs there, preventing next pandemic, perhaps. He also said that Z was a close second. Now, I got to ask you something here. He's saying Putin is a danger to the New World Order. Now, why on earth would he think that Z of China is as big a problem, or, you know, a big problem right next to Putin? These guys know what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is that Z, President Z of China, and I've heard this from day one, is working with the good guys. to defeat evil. And I'm here to tell you, he ain't the only one. It's also Modi of India, Kim of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, or however the hell you say his name. The dude from Saudi Arabia, many world leaders. There's many of them. I think there's over 200 nations, I do believe, that are in on this, working to get rid of the new world. It's basically the entire earth. This is incredibly telling, especially knowing about the U.S. funded labs there, preventing next, perhaps. He also said that Xi was a close second to being the world's most dangerous man next to Putin. That confirms my belief regarding Xi. George Soros said the same thing. This is not coincidental. There should be no more questions. It should be abundantly clear by now that Putin and Xi are single-handedly destroying the New World Order. And they are absolutely terrified about it. Then it says, heir to the Rothschild family, Nathaniel Rothschild today wrote to members of the British government, giving his view that Vladimir Putin is the most dangerous man since the defeat of Hitler, with Xi Jinping a close second, and explained that Ukraine is an essential place that we cannot afford to lose in the geopolitical chessboard. They already lost it. I mean, that's over and done with. Everybody just put that in their pipe, smoke it. I guarantee it's over with. The heir to the Rothschild fortune have argued that Russia must be excised from the international banking and economic system. We must bring Russia to its knees through any means possible, to send a strong signal to the Chinese and to protect our global system of norms and liberal values. We must be under no illusions. If we allow Vladimir Putin to seize Ukraine, it will send a signal to our enemies, Iran, China, and North Korea, especially that we will do nothing when faced with an onslaught of force. In effect, our current path of lack of military action means that our global order is dead on its feet. I urge you to deploy more force against Russia and its proxies. Step up information warfare to correct opinion, especially online, and send weaponry to our friends in Ukraine. Without Ukraine, the global order may not survive. It ain't going to survive. It hadn't survived. It's over and done with. And so is China, Taiwan. I'm just telling you, I ain't saying they won't put on a show to make it look like that China and Taiwan ain't doing something, but it's over with. I mean, I just strongly believe that. And we'll see if I'm right or wrong in the near future. But one good thing about it all, at least in my opinion, is that, we are in an election year. And regardless, we're going to know here pretty damn soon if it's going to be good or if it's going to be bad. But I think it's going to be very, very good myself. I mean, the monetary system, both of them have been running in parallel with each other now for quite some time. And what I'm saying there is that the new money it's been out for a while. But all this new monetary system has been running right alongside of the old, in other words, BRICS, or whatever you want to call it, has been running right alongside of the SWIFT system. And so all they got to do, whenever they get ready to do it, is just flip it over. And, then it's going to be on our asses to do what we got to do. Or we should have already done it. And what I mean is by stocking up on stuff, food, water, whatever the hell you think you'll need, you need to get it, because I don't really think anyone knows how much, if there will be if there will be much destruction or not, here or around the world. I mean, who knows? I certainly hope there's not any, but I'm sure that there will be somewhere. And so when that all comes, and I pray nothing happens, but if and when it does, the more we're prepared, the better we'll be able to withstand it all. Otherwise, you may not even survive it. But everything's looking pretty darn upbeat to me, just to be honest with you. I would love to know you guys' opinion, but it's it really don't matter in a way. I mean, I know how I feel, so all right, let me put this up there right quickly. And see if I can get it to show now. So I'll show you what Mr. Trump had to say about it. Damn, I don't know if I can get it up there or not. Let's see. Yeah, there it is. See if y'all can see it now. Barely. Man, these things are so small. There we go. And this is from President Trump. Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Dang. A bill of attainder is legislation that imposes punishment on a specific person or group of people without a judicial trial. The Constitution includes 2 separate clauses, respectively banning enactment of bills of attainder by the federal government and the states. The Supreme Court has interpreted the federal and state bill of attainder prohibitions as having the same scope. So what he's saying is when they, in case y'all didn't get it, and I'm sure you did, but what he's saying is when they, started printing the money that we're using now, that wasn't supposed to happen. Of course, we all know that it wasn't supposed to happen. But my question is why is President Trump, putting that in a truth today? I mean, it's just kind of hard to figure out, why would he be going there unless the country was about to go there? I think what he's doing is he's preparing us all. He wants us to know. He wants to be sure that we know, that he knows, that we all know that this money that we've been using is not real money, and that what we've got to get back to is the real money. The only way to get back to real money is to go back the way the Constitution was wrote, and the laws about how money was supposed to be coined and everything were wrote. And so that's exactly what I think he's done. He's just letting us know. All right. Dang, I took my mail down. I always do that. I don't know why I always do that, but I do. All right, let's see here. All right. All right, all right, all right, all right. I might tell her, Van, it depends on what it is she wants to know. No, the Federal Reserve is gone. The Federal Reserve has been gone for a while, Ken. No doubt about it. All right. Well, I was hoping y'all would like that Vladimir Putin video. Now, whether you did or not, I don't know, but I got a few more here.
I am David Sorensen from StopWorldControl.com. In this video, I present to you truths and realities that are extremely difficult to comprehend. Information that will shock us to the core because it challenges everything we believe. It turns our world upside down, and it reveals something so evil that it is almost incomprehensible. Yet it is the truth. If we want this world to become a better place, then we cannot afford to deny obvious realities. We must have the courage
Hello,
and
Norma.
sincerity to face truth. I invite you to have this courage and sincerity when you
Miss
watch
Minders,
this video.
too. Hello there, girl, and
It will be
welcome.
difficult. It will be very challenging. But it will also expose something extremely nefarious in this world that every human being needs to be aware of. Several former members of the Israeli Defense Force have come forth because they are extremely concerned.
Well, I tell you, I think Van is pretty darn close and right on the money. That's when it may very well start. Actually, it was supposed to start today. You know, it's going to be a very controlled collapse. I'll put it like that. But yeah, Van, in my opinion, is pretty darn close to it. Right on, Van. Van said, stock market crash, interest rates will skyrocket, housing market crash. It's going to be bad. It sure enough is for a while. And that's what I was saying just a few minutes ago, Van. Sure is. And I'm glad to see you, Miss Minder Sue. Welcome. Good to see you. Very good to see you. Glad you made it back. Chris Cat says you cannot plan the game unless you know what game is going to be played, right? I think that's right. All right. Now back to this one.
About what is going on in Israel. They testify how the military in Israel is the most advanced high-tech army in the entire world.
Bank's
They
already in
also
trouble.
reveal how the borders between Israel and Gaza are the most heavily secured borders anywhere on earth. High-tech sensors alert the Israeli Defense Force from the moment that even a small animal approaches the borders. Yet, hundreds of Hamas fighters were not only able to approach the border, but they blew up the fences. They entered Israeli territory and started destroying homes and burning down villages and killing Israeli people without any semblance of defense by the Israeli military. Turns out that shortly before this attack, the government had ordered the removal of all military presence from that area. Hamas was literally given a free pass to enter and start their operation. In the next videos, you will hear former members of the Israeli Defense Force explain that something very, very, very concerning is going on in Israel.
תשתפו את הסרטון הזה כמה שיותר, כי תקשיבו רגע, אני שירתתי כסמב"צית חי"ר במהלך מלחמת צוק איתן, אני שירתתי באוגדת עזה, כל השירות שלי היה תומכת לחימה בזמן מלחמת צוק איתן שאז הייתה באוגדת עזה. תקשיבו לי ותקשיבו לי טוב, אין מצב בעולם שיכולה להיות כזאת התקרבות לגדר, אוקיי? מבלי שאנחנו לא נדע מזה. התצפיתניות יושבות בבונקרים 4 שעות, הן לא יכולות לעשות ככה, הן מול מסך. לא יכול להיות מצב, שום מצב, שהיו מעירים אותי בלילה על יונה, על חסידה שהתקרבה לגדר, על מקק שעבר מתחת לגדר.
She says a pigeon or a stork that approaches the border immediately alerts all the forces in the sector. This is what Chap and I, we talked about this too.
היו מקפיצים את כל הגזרה. איך נכנסו עם טרקטורים, 400 איש ואף אחד לא שם לב.
October 7th, 2023. This is Efrat Fenigzon, and I'm here to share an update from Israel-Hamas war, which started this morning.
Hello, Ridge Runner. Welcome, brother.
Apparently, Israeli defense forces that were supposed to be around Gaza were placed around the West Bank because of security concerns, so that the Gaza envelope was left unoccupied with military. They say around 60 to 80% of that area was left without the IDF forces that were supposed to be there. A year ago, there was a military operation in Gaza to prepare for such events, and ongoingly there are trainings for these kind of scenarios. This raises serious questions for me anyway about Israeli intelligence. What happened? 2 years ago, there was a successful deployment of underground barriers with sensors to alert exactly on these kind of terrorist breaches. Israel has one of the most
Latina.
advanced and high-tech armies. How come there was zero response to
Welcome,
the border
Latina.
and fence breaching? I cannot understand that. Personally, I served in the IDF 25 years ago in the intelligence forces. There's no way, in my view, that Israel did not know of what's coming. A cat moving alongside the fence is triggering all forces. So what happened to the strongest army in the world? How come border crossings were wide open? Something is very wrong here. Something is very strange. This chain of events is very unusual and not typical for the Israeli defense system. The current government is highly corrupt in my view, while the previous one was no better. I don't care about having a popular opinion. I care about exposing evil forces wherever and whomever they are. So to me, this surprise attack seems like a planned operation on all fronts. If I was a conspiracy theorist, I would say that this feels like the work of the deep state. It feels like the people of Israel and the people of Palestine have been sold once again to the higher powers that be. At the same time, this is still very, very difficult to fathom.
How come the strongest army, the strongest intelligence, the most sophisticated intelligence in the world, in Israel, makes it possible for few hundred Hamas fighters to enter Israel and make all of this happen, while in that area, the Hamas fighters did not meet Israeli army or any defense or any protection or anything, as if the Israeli government was planning to offer the Hamas fighters
Steve, what's
this
up,
whole
Steve? Good to see you,
area
brother.
on a silver plate. This, is not logical.
Don't forget to hit the like button,
the
Steve.
most sophisticated intelligence,
Miss
has
Linda,
a
hello there,
strong
Linda.
army, the
Welcome,
strongest in the
girl.
Middle East, and allow something like this. So there is more behind it. Israel has sacrificed its own people, sacrificed the civilians on the borders of Gaza, took away the protection, took away the army, and allowed Hamas to do what they did.
The following footage was released by Hamas. Here we can see them place explosives on the fences that are extremely heavily secured with high tech, but not a sign of Israeli response. They blow
Welcome,
up the
William.
fences on several places.
Ironsman, welcome, brother. Good to see you.
Here you have an aerial view of how they are breaking through and destroying the infrastructure. We can even see how they are literally entering onto Israeli territory with their vehicles full of armed soldiers. And not a single attempt of the Israeli Defense Force to stop them in any way. They literally received a free pass to enter into Israel. They can even drive on the roads of Israel. This is another video released by Hamas showing how they are able to blow up the security fences and enter Israel unhindered. We have to understand that this is not some massive army invading Israel. It's basically a low number of terrorists. The incredible, powerful military of Israel could have stopped them in a breeze, but they didn't. So what is really going on here? Why was there no response from the Israeli Defense Force when armed soldiers from Hamas entered Israeli territory, even blowing up the fences and going deep into Israel and starting to burn down villages and kill people and kidnap people? Why was the Israeli military removed from that whole area right before this attack? Why was the mainstream news media instructed not to be honest to the public? And why did they wait for 12 hours to inform Israel? There is clearly something very, very nefarious going on here, a criminal operation at government level of the worst kind. The question is, what is their agenda? What is the purpose? I believe that the answer is given by this letter that was sent by the government coalition in Israel to Prime Minister Netanyahu. It shows that they demand an immediate invasion into Gaza and a complete seizing of control of that whole area that belonged for the past decades to the Palestinian people. And indeed, we see that immediately Israel responds and does something that they have been wanting to do for decades. A complete all-out attack on Gaza, where 2.5 million innocent Palestinian people live. Families like you and me, mommies, daddies, children, grandfathers, grandmothers, just beautiful people. They are being bombarded. They're being murdered en masse. This is homicide of the worst kind. And this invasion by Hamas is the perfect excuse to accomplish this.
بس المربع كله المربع اللي قالوا يخلوه ضربوه.
What every person in the world should know is that more than half of the 2.3 million people in Gaza are children younger than the age of 15. This means that Israel is now bombing more than 1 million young children.
دمار شامل وواسع في هذا المكان. عشرات الصواريخ تقريبا 50 غارة كانت فجر اليوم على هذا المكان على بيوت المواطنين. موطني ذا الهباء. اسحب شهيد اللي عاش في قلب المخيم ننقل لكم الصورة من قلب مخيم جبالة. نحن الآن في الترانس تحديدا، شهداء بالعشرات وجرحى. هذا هو ما يحدث الآن في غزة في مخيم جبالة تحديدا. هذا سوبر ماركت رابعة سابقا.
The destruction that is being unleashed on 2.5 million families, mummies, daddies, children, grandfathers, grandmothers, uncles, nieces. I use these words to get my point through. These are people who live there in Gaza, and now Israel is wiping them out. They are destroying thousands and thousands of families under the excuse of a Hamas attack. On top of that, Israel cut off all water, power, gas and food from these 2.5 million people. Here we can see utter darkness in the entire Gaza area. Hundreds of thousands of families have no drinking water, have no electricity, no gas, and no food. What is really disturbing is that less than 2 weeks before Israel launched their attack on Gaza with the purpose of permanently eliminating it, Netanyahu showed a map during the General Assembly at the United Nations. This map is called the New Middle East. When you look at Israel, then the Palestinian regions have been completely removed. There is no sign anymore of any Palestinian presence on the map of the New Middle East that Netanyahu showed less than 2 weeks before they launched their attack on Gaza. With every false flag operation, it is always the same principle. Some entity wants to commit a horrendous crime, but they don't want to be blamed for it. So they have to use another entity to shift the blame to. In this case, it is very clear. They use Hamas. Hamas is supposedly the bad actor here. And all Israel does supposedly is defend itself.
Mr.
So now they
Arizona,
have the
hello there and
right to
welcome.
do something which they have wanted to do for decades. Completely eradicate the whole Gaza Strip and commit horrendous homicide on the Palestinian people. The next question we then have is, why would Hamas cooperate with Israel? In the next clip, we probably find the answer. US Senator Ron Paul exclaimed in the US government that Hamas is actually an organization that is set up by Israel, financed by Israel, to work for Israel.
You know, Hamas, if you look at the history, you'll find out that Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat.
What Senator Ron Paul said is confirmed by a man called Ronald Bernard. He worked at a high level in the so-called financial elites, the most wealthy and most powerful in this world, who control the world theater behind the scenes. He explains how terrorist organizations are essentially funded by the same sources that also fund the organizations that supposedly fight those terrorists.
Which is not surprising, considering they are involved in the flows of money. Those are your clients. You also have governments to deal with, multinationals. You have to deal with secret services, and what they now call terrorist organizations. You get all of the groups that are involved with the big money as clients. Then you start seeing the connections. So, they might be compartmentalized as you just mentioned, regarding knowledge. But because I am in the middle, I see how they relate to another. You see the money coming from this place, then going to that place, etc. You keep gaining information and thereby an overview of what is really going on.
So do you have to serve and keep all of those groups happy, including terrorist organizations? You were trying to keep everybody happy?
Yes.
My God.
That was my job.
Keeping all the balls in the air.
Yes, indeed. So one of the things that I found out, I did not know that before, but now I do, is about secret services. You think they are there to serve and protect a people, country, etc., but they actually turn out to be the criminal organizations, to be more precise. The system is heavily so. We are talking about financing wars, creating wars, so basically creating a lot of misery in this world. So, lots of conflict. And then I think to myself, if only people knew what the world is really like, secret services will stop at nothing.
This video is called The Mystery of Israel Solved. That's the name of this video.
Nothing. But they also have their flows of money, because if they are trading in drugs or weapons or, for that matter, people, All that money has to go somewhere.
Oh, and I just want to say I grabbed the wrong, header to put on my video today. So it's not me and Steve. It's just me, but that's my fault. So anyway, away we go.
Everything has to be financed.
You say, but you could confirm they are doing this?
All of them. All of them.
You can view the full interview with Ronald Bernard on the website stopworldcontrol.com/Bernard. He explains much more about what's really going on in our world, behind the scenes of the puppet theater that is put up for the public. Because it is a puppet theater indeed.
This surprise attack seems like a planned operation on all fronts.
אין מצב בעולם שיכולה להיות כזאת התקרבות לגדר, אוקיי? מבלי שאנחנו לא נדע מזה.
Israel has sacrificed its own people, sacrificed the civilians on the borders of Gaza.
Since they started their invasion of the land of Palestine more than 80 years ago, several hundreds of thousands of people have been murdered by the Israeli forces. And as you can see on this map, they have gradually been stealing all their land, their farms, their vineyards, their homes, all their possessions. And then ultimately they locked up these people in Gaza, which is the largest open-air prison in the world, with the highest suicide rate in the world, because life is so unbearable there.
Dave, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Welcome, Dave.
There is something very important that we all need to realize concerning Hamas. Hamas was created so that Israel could play victim. Israel is the actual aggressor who invaded a peaceful region, murdered hundreds of thousands of people, stole all their land, their homes, their farms, their vineyards, all their possessions, and locked them up in open-air prisons and in areas where these people are terrorized every day of their life. Still, the majority of humanity looks at Israel as if they are the victims. That is the success of Hamas. And this is how psychological operations work that are run by intelligence agencies to manipulate mankind. Here you see footage from Palestinian people before the invasion by the Zionists. These are no terrorists. These are no dangerous people. These are just happy families, just like you and me. A former soldier from the Israeli defense.
I just got to say something right here too, and that is that thinking back on all this stuff, back over the years, and would hear of Hamas or whoever firing rockets into Israel. And of course, that was years ago when all this was going on. Before I wised up myself, so I'm just saying, it's to me, it's very nice now to know exactly what the hell's, not exactly, but to know some of what's going on in the world anyway. So at least we know who the crooks are and who they ain't.
Defense Force explains how they literally terrorized these millions of people on a daily basis.
What most haunts you and your conscience about what you did in your time as a soldier?
For me, it's the routine way we control the Palestinians, right? A Palestinian can wake up in the morning and not know if he will be at work on time, go to sleep, not know if soldiers will invade his home. We basically control the most simple and basic elements of life.
It's designed to break down the population of Palestinians and show them who's in charge and humiliate them on a daily basis.
Exactly. How can we make 2.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank to feel that they cannot lift their head up? We will make them understand.
I don't believe it's propaganda. I believe they're telling exactly what's going on over there. And I will say right here, though, that I doubt that all the stuff they said, it has happened in Palestine has happened, but a good bit of it has. So anyway.
that we control their lives. The segregated roads and the settlements and so forth, they exist all around the occupied territories. Military activity, home invasions, patrols, digital surveillance, they exist here and they exist all over the West Bank. The difference in Hebron is that in a very short walk, we can see examples of all of it.
All of it.
All of
We
it.
saw all of it.
The United Nations says that 251 Israelis lost their life compared to 5,590 Palestinians that were killed between 2008 and 2020. A member of the European Parliament from Ireland, however, says that the numbers are much higher.
More than 150,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed or injured in Gaza and the West Bank since 2008. 33,000 of those were children.
But what is truly behind the invasion of the land of Palestine and the stealing of the land of millions of people and murdering and torturing them? What is the deeper agenda behind all of this? We find the answer when we look at the entities who are behind the establishing of the State of Israel. It is the family of the Rothschilds. On their own official website, they brag how they are the ones who financed the rebuilding of Israel. They are the ones who made Israel possible.
I'm sorry, I was muted and forgot about it. But anyway, I think what God was talking about was the people Israel, not a land of Israel. Because as far as I can tell and find and see and have heard, this has been Palestine, forever. But regardless, I mean, let's say that it hadn't. Let's say that this is the old biblical homeland of Israel and of Christ and everything, which maybe it is, maybe it ain't. I don't know. I wasn't around at that time, but I'm not a historian. But I am saying, regardless of what was then and what is now, that don't give them the right, don't give anybody the right to just go in and commit wholesale murder. I mean, why are they doing that? They don't need to do that. They're doing it because a big war is wanted, is all I can tell you.
So who are the Rothschilds? And why did they spend billions of dollars to invest in the building of a new political and military state of Israel? The Rothschilds are amongst the most wealthy people in the world. Their fortune is estimated to be several trillions of dollars. That is several thousands of billions of dollars.
They don't got that no more.
That makes them basically the most powerful people in the whole financial and banking system of this world. They operate, for example, from within.
I would almost be willing to bet at least $1. I'm just saying, a whole dollar, that the Rothschilds are no longer up there in that stratospheric wealth where they've been forever. I think they've been taken down from there quite a bit.
In the city of London, not to be confused with London City. London City is the city that we all know. It is London, where people live and where tourists visit. The city of London, however, is a small area of 1 square mile within the heart of London City. The city of London is the financial center of the entire world. And there is something highly significant about the city of London. This small area of 1 square mile is a sovereign state. It is not subject to the laws of England, nor the United Kingdom, nor the royal family. On the contrary, the City of London actually rules supreme over them. The City of London is the continuation of what we all know as the British Empire. The British Empire attempted to gain world domination.
Well, I can tell you this about Palestine and about Israel. Israel was created at the behest of the Rothschilds. Why would the Rothschilds want to create any country, particularly one over there right in the middle of Palestine, and to more or less I think it was more or less so that they could control that part of the world, you know, have a more or less a base camp there. It's kind of like to me, it's kind of like a little U.S. But anything the Rothschilds have been involved in ought to tell you something. And it shouldn't be good, whatever it tells you.
They still essentially own a vast portion of the world, like Australia, Canada, New Zealand, several African nations, and many more. The City of London is the headquarters of all the big banks in this world, as well as the headquarters of Freemasonry. The crest, or the coat of arms of the City of London, shows 2 dragons, and then the helmet of a knight with a wing of a dragon. The Latin...
Oh, thank you, Miss Minder Sue. Thank you so very much. Miss Minder Sue just sent me $50. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. I appreciate that very much, Miss Minder Sue. Thank you.
Creed, translated into English, means Lord guide us. So they show dragons and they say Lord guide us. The dragon in mythology, but also in spirituality, for example, in the Holy Scriptures, represents the personification of evil that wants to deceive and rule over all of humanity. The ancient dragon is the symbol of Satan or the devil. It is significant that the City of London is surrounded by 14 statues of a dragon. So the dragon is the #1 symbol within the City of London. This brings us to another element of the Rothschilds. They are known for their involvement in a religion called Luciferianism or Satanism. Baroness Philippine de Rothschild often wore jewelry that depicts the symbol of Satanism, a horned goat. She even had jewels that simply showed the head.
But there is a Palestine. It's I mean, it's been on the map as the land of Palestine now for at least 1,000 years. Whether we want to call it the Palestinians themselves homeland or not may be another question. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the Rothschilds stepped in and went to the King of England and had all this put in for the Jewish people, which is, you know, in theory, I have nothing against. But what bothers me is they're treating the Palestinian people like they want to treat all of us and just wipe them out. That's the way it appears to me. And like I said, with the Rothschilds creating Israel, I don't know what else a person would need to be told, really. And that's enough for me right there.
Head of Satan. On this picture, we can see Baron Jacob Rothschild posing in front of a famous painting called Satan Calls His Armies Forth from Hell. He poses alongside one of their favorite artists, Marina Abramovich. This lady organizes very strange parties for the elites. Here you see some images of these parties that are called spirit cooking. They basically celebrate the practice of human sacrifice and cannibalism. In the next video, you can see a spirit cooking dinner organized by Marina Abramovich, one of the favorite artists of the Rothschilds, who founded the State of Israel. I need to warn you, what you're about to see is extremely graphic and complicit and deeply disturbing.
I don't know how much of that I can handle, just to be honest with you. I mean, golly, that looks awful. I mean, get on past this, at least some of it.
Celebrates human sacrifice, which is at the heart of Satanism. Here you can see more art from Abramovich, a good friend of the Rothschilds. She celebrates all the symbolism of Satanism, the snake, the devil's horns, even child abuse. In 2017, the Rothschilds chose an artist from among thousands of artists in our world to decorate their sailing boat during the Lascaux project. From all the existing artists in our world, they handpicked one particular man, Cleo Peterson. Here you can see some of his art. It always shows dark entities that are torturing white figures. Always darkness torturing the light, evil ruling over good. He shows scenes of violent rape, violent murder, violent slavery, and violent suppression. It is highly significant that the Rothschilds picked this artist to decorate their sailing boat. At the beginning of this video, I warned you that this would be extremely disturbing information. And I'm sure that most people are not aware that Israel was founded by blatant Satanists. So, but this brings us back to the original question. Why did they invade Palestine? Why did they erect the state of Israel? Everyone who is informed knows that there has always been an agenda for world domination all throughout world history. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is one of the most basic realities of human history. There has been one world empire after the other. And for some weird reason, there are many people in our time who dismiss the reality of an agenda for world domination, which is dazzling. It's almost insane to think that there would no longer be an agenda for world domination in our time, because this has always been the red line all throughout human history. The only question is, who are the people today that aim for world domination? Well, there is, for example, the World Economic Forum, who make it very clear on their own website that they are striving for global governance. They want to control the whole world. They also strive for internet governance and corporate governance. They want to establish governance over every aspect of human society. So here you have it. It is out in the open. Well, the Rothschilds are among the families who are behind the World Economic Forum, which is basically a public entity that is backed up by the City of London and by these high-level financial elites. Now, in the past decades, there have been extremely disturbing revelations about what's going on within these financial elites. The main theme that has been exposed by innumerable insiders, and I mean surviving victims or eyewitnesses or former employees, and even former directors of the FBI and the CIA, and former police officers and detectives and commanders from the military, and former agents and officers from intelligence services. All of these people have been revealing one same horrific reality. They have been exposing to our world how there is an organized system of child abuse and child trafficking and even child torture and child ritual sacrifice.
Settle down, chap. Settle down now.
Financial elites. There is, for example, the whistleblower Ronald Bernard. He was operating at the highest level within these financial circles, and he was moving trillions of dollars. He exposed how at the very highest level of these financial elites, there is indeed this religion called Luciferianism. And he joined into their satanic masses for a while because there was a lot of fun. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, you could say. But then he was invited to partake into the ritual of child sacrifice. And he was promised that if he would join into that, he would receive unimaginable financial opportunities. He would become wealthier than his wildest dreams. Here is a short...
Y'all all know YouTube loves me far, far too much to do something like that to me now. I mean, there ain't no way they'd do something like that to me. To Chap, maybe, but not to me. Joke.
Clip from the testimony of Ronald Bernard.
But then at some point, I was invited, which is why I'm telling you all this, to participate in sacrifices abroad.
This guy looks like a crook. But he probably ain't. Not anymore. He used to.
That was the
but I don't
breaking
anymore.
point. Children.
Should have been.
You were asked to do that?
Yes. And I couldn't do that.
Would you like to stop for a moment, by the way?
No. And then I started to slowly break down. I lived through quite a lot as a child myself.
Thank you, JM, for posting my Rumble link there. But I don't know what's wrong with Rumble tonight, but it ain't working. So anyway, this one won't be on Rumble. For whatever reason, it wasn't working when I came on.
And this really touched me deeply. Everything changed. But that is the world I found myself in.
What?
I know what you're talking about there, Dave. He says Hitler tried to eradicate the Jews. They went back to Israel in 1948 to become a nation. Well, they never would have went back there if it hadn't been for Lord Rothschild. That's number one. And he says, this sounds like propaganda to me, just my opinion. I'll tell you what, everything I've seen on here so far is a solid truth to me. I mean, I understand some of you guys don't agree with it, and that's all well and good. But I'm just saying, we've all got a whole new thing to learn about the whole world, not just Israel and not just Palestine, but the whole world. This is part of it that we got to learn. That I'm not saying the Jewish people are bad. I'm saying the people that created Israel and the reason they created it are bad. Not the original Israel, but the one that is there now is of the Khazarian mafia. That's what they are. And I hate to, believe me, I don't even like saying those words because, of YouTube and things like that. But it's the truth. We got to wake up to these facts, guys. And I know that they were sent there, or they went back there in 1948, or they went there in 1948. But that was through Lord Rothschild and England. If it hadn't been for them, there never would have been no Israel. If it hadn't been for the Rothschilds, there never would have been no Israel. So anyway, you gotta, you're right there, Dave, to an extent. But what's happened in the last 1,000 years and since 1948 does definitely need some more research.
Ronald Bernard has revealed to our world is confirmed by an incredible large number of other whistleblowers. I am personally in touch with several people who came out of these elites, and all of them say the same thing. And this brings us back to Israel. This brings us back to what is really going on in the Middle East. All these people who came forth from these financial elites testify that their ultimate goal is to set up a one-world government, global governance, and they want the headquarters to be in Jerusalem. And this has an ancient spiritual reason. I won't go into that right now, but we have to understand that everything has a background. But they specifically want Jerusalem to be their headquarters. Now, for many Christians, this will be extremely shocking to hear, and I totally understand that, but I ask you to hear me out. Everything I present here is solid evidence. It can be researched by anyone, and all the facts are available for every person who has the courage to look at these facts. So why is nobody aware of this? Why is the entire Christian community worldwide, which consists of roughly 2 billion people, why do they support the state of Israel blindly? Let us go back into history a little bit. For many centuries, Palestine was a very peaceful region where Muslims, Jews, and Christians lived in harmony with one another. There was no hatred, there was no war. This is something unnatural that is created by higher powers in politics and in the financial world. But these people had no issue with one another whatsoever. It's only when the Rothschilds started investing into establishing this state that hatred was artificially incited between different people groups. So after centuries of living happily in peace and in harmony, suddenly there was this invasion by forces that are called Zionists or Zionism. Zionism is indeed the philosophy
Mr. Bobby,
of the
hello
movement
there and
of
welcome.
people who want to establish a new Israel as the center of a one world government. In order to accomplish their goal, they, however, had to do one very important thing.
Oh,
They needed
what's up,
the
Bob?
support
Good to
of
see
the
you, brother.
worldwide
Welcome.
Christian community. They needed the churches on their side. So in the 19th century, before Israel was founded, the Rothschilds worked closely with several people in Christianity. They attracted a man called Cyrus Scofield. He was a convicted criminal lawyer, an expert in fraud and forgery. He was asked to create a new Bible, the Scofield Study Bible. This was the first Bible in all of history to contain hundreds of footnotes. In these footnotes, a new doctrine was introduced into the American Evangelical Church, which says that there was to come a new political military Israel, and that would be the place where the Messiah would come to rule the world. And they said that would be the fulfillment of the promise that God had made to Abraham. And that would also be the fulfillment of the promise that Christ would return to earth. This Bible was then spread all throughout America through the Moody Bible Institute, and it became the foundation for the current day evangelical theology. Nobody was aware that this Bible was directly funded by Satanists and that it served the agenda to get Christianity on their side for establishing a new Israel that would become the headquarters of their one world government. And again, I know that all this sounds outrageous to many people who have never heard this before, but you can research this. And I encourage you to do your due diligence. I've studied this for decades and I know what I'm talking about, but it's very difficult sometimes when you talk to people who are not informed, who have simply accepted a certain mindset, who have blindly believed that, and who repeat it to everybody else without ever doing their research. But all this is historical fact. The Scofield Study Bible was published by the Oxford University Press, which was owned by the Rothschilds. And this whole theology was first written out by John Darby, whose family owned the most haunted castle in the world, Leap Castle, where 150 dead bodies.
I think it's Chrissy that asked that. Yeah, Chrissy, the Khazarian Jews are people that are not really Jews. Yeah, I know, Hawk. Believe me, I know. Thank you, brother. I know what you're talking about there. The next Hawk said is be careful. I was trying from playing. Oh, was this the one you played? Oh, I didn't know that. But anyway, the difference between what a Khazarian Jew is people that are not really Jews. So they took these people, and there was a war between Russia and all these other countries and Khazaria at that time. Well, the only way that these Khazarians could get Russia and all of them to stop attacking them was to become, another religion. So they give them three to choose from: Muslim, Christianity, or Judaism, I think were the three. Anyway, they chose Judaism. But they aren't real Jews. They're the people that hate us. Absolutely hate us. Now, I'm taking it the Hasidic Jews are the real Jews. But anyway, these people that are running things right now aren't the real ones. You see, Dave says the last war is fought over the Dome of the Rock. It will be destroyed. That's better be fought in Megiddo. And that's exactly what I know of the Bible too, Dave. But what's going on now, I don't think it's got anything to do with that, really. We'll find out, though, at some point. But I'm just saying, that the way Israel could have been set up to be a wonderful country. It really could have. But that's not why they wanted it. They didn't want Israel to be a wonderful country. For them, they did, but not for the people. Just like they want all the rest of the world.
Bodies were found in the cellars and where satanic masses were held. John Darby used all kinds of occult terms in his religious writings. He was involved in many secret societies and occult groups. And he is the one who educated
exactly Mr.
Cyrus
Bobby
Scofield. But John Darby was an employee of the Rothschilds. He worked for the East India Company. The Scofield Study Bible literally said that everyone who supported this new Israel would be blessed by God, and everyone who did not support it would be cursed by God. So fear and intimidation was used to force Christians to be on their side, and they succeeded. In our time, the vast majority of Christianity believes thoroughly that this new political military state of Israel is indeed the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. But they haven't got the slightest clue what's really going on here. The whole violent invasion into the land of Palestine, where Muslims and Christians and Jews had been living peacefully together for thousands of years, is based on a misunderstanding of the promise that God made to Abraham in the Old Testament. God told Abraham that he would receive land, that a great people would come forth from him. But one of the experts of the Jewish religion, who later became the Apostle Paul, wrote to the Jews in his time, who were called the Hebrews, that Abraham essentially was not promised and was not looking for a stretch of desert. He was looking for a heavenly land built by the hand of God, something far more beautiful, far more profound, far more glorious. This was confirmed by Jesus Christ, who was the Messiah and who came to fulfill all the promises of God to Abraham and to his descendants. But he surprised everybody by saying, "My kingdom is not of this world." He said, "My kingdom is not visible with the human eye. My kingdom," he said, "doesn't work with weapons. It doesn't wage war." He said, "My kingdom is not on a geographical location on earth." He said, "My kingdom is a heavenly realm. And you can only see it through the Spirit of God. You can only enter it when you are born from above by the Spirit." And he said, "My kingdom is among you. It is inside of you." So God is not interested in a political military nation that wages war and kills people. Jesus Christ is called the Prince of Peace. He's the one who removes all hatred and violence between people and who makes people brothers.
Right on.
That's
right
why
on.
in the New Testament it says, in Christ there is neither Jew nor Gentile. There is no more hostility or division. There is one new man, one new creation in Christ. Those who accept Christ, they are the ones who can enter into this kingdom of God. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with military warfare. It has nothing to do with hatred between one people group and another people group. That is in fact the exact opposite of this. But we've all been told something entirely different. We've been told by the Rothschilds through the C.I. Scofield Study Bible, which has spread all around the world and which was unquestioningly accepted by all of Christianity, that it is all about a political military nation.
Hello, Antara. Welcome, brother.
Christ said. He said, even to the Samaritan women at the well, for those who know what scriptures say, he said, the time is gone, the time is over, where people worship God in the city of Jerusalem. He said, now the true worshippers will worship God in spirit, because God is spirit, and that's the worship that he longs for. And then the Apostle Paul explained to the Galatians, he said, guys, understand this. You guys are not children from the earthly Jerusalem. You are not children from something worldly. You are children, you come forth from the heavenly Jerusalem. The heavenly Jerusalem is your mother. It's a heavenly kingdom, Jesus Christ said. In the old covenant, there was a physical Israel, a physical Jerusalem, a stone temple, but in 70 AD, that was all destroyed. That was judged by the Almighty God. And then in the New Testament, it says that we are now the temple of the living God. He dwells in us. We are his dwelling place, and his spirit builds us as homes where God can dwell. And through us, he brings healing and deliverance to the world. So we have two completely opposite mindsets. In the time of Jesus, the Jews wanted a political and military kingdom. That's why the apostles joined Christ. That's why Jude, who betrayed Christ, followed him. He expected Christ to restore Israel in a military, political way. And when Jesus didn't do that, and when it was clear that he was going to be killed by the Jews, then Jude betrayed him. He thought, this guy is not going to restore a political military Israel. He's in no way anything that I thought he would be. He's not going to be our world leader who will bring peace over all of humanity from Israel. So Jude betrayed him, and that caused Christ to be murdered. The apostles also left Christ. They were disillusioned. But when the Spirit of God came on Pentecost, all the Christians suddenly began to understand, starting with the apostles, what Christ had been explaining to them. This is not about a political military land. This is about a heavenly land. This is about the reign of the Most High God in your heart, where you are transformed on the inside, where heaven comes to dwell in your heart, and you become a completely different person, not through a religion, not through something political or social or military or whatever, but by becoming a child. Christ said, if you become like a little child, you can enter into the kingdom of heaven. So the promises that God had made to Abraham and his descendants were fulfilled in Christ. God never spoke about a stretch of desert that would be his ultimate fulfillment. He had something far more beautiful, far more glorious. He had a heavenly kingdom, a heavenly nation, people all around the world who love God. And here we come to an incredible misunderstanding concerning what it means to be a Jew or an Israelite or a descendant of Abraham. Who was Abraham? What is a real Jew? Listen carefully. Even if you're not a Christian, even if you're not religious in any way, this is extremely interesting and fascinating, and it explains the core of what's going on in Israel and the agenda for world domination. So this relates to all of us, no matter our background and beliefs. So please keep watching, because a lot more will be revealed. Abraham was somebody who was faithful to the creator of life. He did not join into the demon worship and the human sacrifice and all the sorcery and magic of his surroundings. He remained faithful to the creator of all life. That's why God revealed himself to Abraham and said, Abraham, you will be the father of all the people throughout all of history who will be just like you. They will walk in your footsteps in a way that they will also love me despite evil surroundings in their culture. They will be faithful to me despite perversion and wickedness in their nation. He said, a great people will come forth from you, and they will come from every tribe, every tongue, every nation. And this will be called Israel. Israel means Prince of God, or in other words, royal child of the creator of heaven and earth. So Israel was never meant to be a political nation. It was that for a short period to show that that doesn't work out, because the people of Israel who came after Abraham, they left the creator. They turned back to darkness, and they went back to worshiping demons and human sacrifice. You can read that all throughout the scriptures. And God kept sending his prophets to call them back to him, but they always rejected and even murdered them. So God showed a political nation is not my idea. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about physical seed. I'm talking about spiritual seed. I'm talking about people.
No, Mr. B, I'm a long way from Amarillo, or even the Texas Panhandle. I live down close to Sherman, Texas. It's Sherman is about I'd say maybe 150 miles from Oklahoma City, but it's a long ways from Amarillo. But I know what you're talking about them fires out there. We was talking about those a little bit a while ago. Thank you, Mr. B.
Who are circumcised in their heart, who walk with me in the midst of darkness, who are faithful to me, surrounded by wickedness, who walk in faith, even though their eyes can't see and their mind can't understand. They keep trusting me. That is what it means to be the seed of Abraham. We are.
Yeah, I'll drop the link here in just a minute.
Like him. We walk like him. We live like him. We walk in his footsteps. And that's why the prophet Isaiah and the apostle Paul clearly said that only a very small portion of ancient Israel was truly Israel. Only those who were truly faithful to God. The vast majority of ancient Israel turned their back to God and were just as wicked and satanic as the other nations who practiced human sacrifice and demon worship and all kinds of magic and sorcery. So Abraham is the father of faith. His seed is not genetic. His seed is spiritual. That's why Christ said the people who listen to the Creator, who listen to God, and who do what he says, they are the children of God. They are my brothers and sisters. And that's why the Apostle John said it's impossible to become a child of God by ways of genetics or lineage or by the will of a man. You become a child of God by accepting Christ whom he sent, by believing what God says. Well, in the time of Christ, you had Jews who accepted Christ and you had Jews who rejected him. The Jews who rejected Christ were the ones who wanted a military political kingdom. They wanted to defeat the Romans and establish a military nation that would rule the whole world. They interpreted the scriptures in a very earthly way. Why Christ said it's only by the Spirit of God that you can worship God and that you can understand it. And that's why the Apostle Paul also said we have the mind of Christ. We have the mind of the Spirit who reveals the mysteries of God. And the mystery of God was that.
All right, Mr. B, thanks for dropping in for a few minutes. Don't forget to hit the like before you leave, though, Mr. B. I mean, just because you sing like Elvis don't mean you don't have to hit the like. Thank you, Mr. B.
The promises that he had been making were fulfilled in Christ. And that's also why it says that all the promises of God are yes and amen in Christ, not in a political military nation. So this is in a nutshell what the Bible really says. This is also the core, the heart of the Christian faith. God dwells in the heart of man. He doesn't.
Stephen, yes, I've definitely been baptized. Most assuredly. If I remember correctly, I believe I was 11 years old when I was baptized. Maybe 10, but it's one or the other.
Dwell in a temple built by man. He dwells in the heart of man, which is built by the Spirit of God. Our life, our mind, our thoughts, our actions, our entire existence becomes a home for the Creator to express his love and to show his love to the rest of humanity. And there is no racism in God. He is not a respecter of persons. The mindset that being a Jew means that you have some kind of a genetic connection to Abraham, that makes you a racist, because people who think that way say the Jews are better than the rest of humanity. They have the right to slaughter and murder and torture and imprison and rob everybody else because they are the chosen people. And that is exactly how the Pharisees were thinking. In scripture we can read that they talked about other nations as being dogs. They said those people are animals. And now with the attack of Hamas,
Hello, Mountain Aviator.
Which is not really Hamas. Hamas is
that's right, Antara.
Financed by the same people who finance Israel. But the Israeli defense minister literally said those Palestinians, they are human animals. So that is the racist mentality of these people who think that being a Jew means that you are better than other people.
אנחנו מטילים מצור מוחלט על העיר עזה. אין חשמל, אין מזון, אין מים, אין דלק. הכל סגור. אנחנו נלחמים בחיות אדם ואנחנו נוהגים
He said that they are cutting off everything to the Gaza Strip, water, food, everything. And right there it says we are fighting human animals and we act accordingly. They, in my opinion, are the human animals.
There is a vast contrast between what Christ and the scriptures say and between what was introduced into Christianity. Basically, the doctrine of Zionism goes back to the time of the ancient Israelites, who wanted a political, military Israel that would rule over the world. That's basically that literal interpretation. And they are the ones who murdered Christ. They are the ones who killed all the Christians. They are the ones who slaughtered the apostles, because they did not want the kingdom of heaven in the heart of man. They wanted the political, military fulfillment of the promises of God. So they rejected Christ. They rejected what the apostles preached. They rejected everything that the scriptures truly said. So this is where we come at the core of the issue. And I hope that you are still with me. I've been real fast explaining this as concise as I can, but I invite all the Christians who are watching this video to study the scriptures sincerely. Read the letter of Paul to the Galatians. Read what Christ in the gospel said about the kingdom. He never spoke about a political military reign. He rejected that fiercely. Okay? And Jude betrayed him for that. The Christian church has been severely subverted. Instead of being faithful to what Jesus Christ said, whom they claim to believe, follow, and worship, they actually completely diverted from everything Christ has said, and they went back to what the Pharisees said. We need a military, political Israel. When we look at the modern day state of Israel, it becomes crystal clear that it has nothing whatsoever in common with the Israel that God is talking about in Scripture. In Scripture, God says that Israel, prince of God, royal children of God, is his family. It's his people, those who love him, those who worship him, those who are faithful to him. It is his kiddos, his beloved ones, the apple of his eye, the people that truly belong to God. When you look at the current state of Israel, it is one of the most atheist states in the whole world. The vast majority of Israel fiercely rejects the existence of God. They say that there is no God. Many of them are Freemasons. Israel, in its short existence, has become one of the capitals of sexual perversion worldwide, with the biggest pride parade in the Middle East. It is a safe haven for pedophiles. People who are wanted by the law for child abuse can flee to Israel and they will not be prosecuted there. So this is very powerful evidence that Israel has nothing to do with the true Israel that God was talking about, which is literally the exact opposite of this. God says, love your enemies. We are all brothers. He calls people to live in peace with one another. Israel is the exact opposite of this. It kills millions of people. It murders them. It tortures children in prison. This is unfathomable. There is no connection between this political, military, violent state, which was financed by Satanists, and which is a capital in the world of sexual perversion and one of the most atheist nations in the world, and what God says that Israel is. It is literally the exact opposite. Let me show you something. This is a legit $1 note. How do you know that it's real? Well, because it says so here, right? $1. So you can rest assured that this is a genuine $1 note.
It looks as real as the one I got in my pocket.
That's exactly what's going on with Israel. It's not because somebody assumes an identity or uses a certain name that they are the real thing. This is an authentic $1 note. It doesn't only say $1, but it has all the characteristics. When we look at Israel, we need to look at the characteristics, not just be fooled by the name Israel. Anyone can say, I'm an Israelite, I'm a Jew, or whatever. We have to look at what are the hallmarks of the true Israel according to the Torah, according to the Old Testament and the scriptures. And then we have to look if we can see those characteristics. That's how we determine if something is real. You can't just go around and say, look, this is real because it says so. Using the Star of David and using the name Israel doesn't make you Israel. This is something we really have to understand. And then another key insight I need to share with you is that this is being presented to humanity as an everlasting conflict between one people group and another, Israeli and Palestinians. But that's not what's really going on. As we saw, the entities who are behind both Israel and Hamas, they are the ones who have caused this conflict. They are the ones who initiate this war. Essentially, this is a war between the deep state and all of humanity. And both the Israeli and Palestinian people are victim of this. We are all being fooled by a very powerful and very cunning group of people who operate behind the scenes and who pull on the strings. So this is the mystery of Israel that has been solved. It has nothing to do with what the ancient scriptures say about what Israel is. It is diametrically the opposite of that. It was founded and financed by blatant Satanists who have an agenda for world domination and who want to have the support of the billions of Christians from around the world so that they can succeed in their agenda.
Buff,
I understand that it's
Buff. Good
extremely
to see
shocking
you.
if you hear this for the first time. But all this information can be researched. You can find more and more evidence for this when you do your due diligence. I want to invite you to become part of building a better world, where we don't support entities that create war and murder hundreds of thousands and even millions of people. We are not here to make this world a place of horror and terror and fear and destruction. We are here to bring love, justice, and goodness amongst all of humanity. This is our purpose. That's why this film was made, to expose an extremely nefarious agenda. Their plan is to incite world war, so that they can use that as an excuse for establishing a one-world government, which would then supposedly bring peace. We have the choice to fall into this trap or to open our eyes and have the courage to stand up for what is right and prevent their agenda. I invite you to go to the website stopworldcontrol.com. And
Hello, beautiful Indy, and welcome, girl. Good to see you. Welcome, Indy. And that's that man's take on Israel and all. And I got to tell you, I know a lot of people still believe in Israel and everything we've been taught, for the last however long. And which I guess, if that's the way you want to believe, that's fine. But that's not the way it is anymore. I mean, you got to really dig into this stuff now and start looking at what the world is really built on. And believe me, it's built on a bunch of lies. That's exactly what it's built on. And I felt the same way as everybody else that was talking about Israel a while ago did for a long, long time, basically my whole life. I mean, as far as I was concerned, Israel was there because of God. That ain't what it is, well, God with a little g, maybe, not the God with a big G. But anyway, I mean, it's not something that, well, I ain't gonna say anymore. It's better not say anything else. Let's see. Let me try this one here. Let's see what it's got to say. Yeah, it's a showing. Yeah, it's a showing. If it ever gets started.
Necessary of many witnesses, and who land on this materialistic earth in flying.
And by the way, this one's about Project Looking Glass. It's about 26 minutes long. And this is Looking Glass has always been a big question of mine. So anyway, here we go.
Saucers, to which you, if you're one of the chosen, shall enter through an anti-gravity elevator. Nothing to hold you up. You just whisk up into the body of the flying saucer, a scout ship from outer space. No way. I'm not really joking. Because I've got a man now, here and now, one of the men who claims fervently that he has met these people from outer space, has talked to them, and has been given secrets of things such as a time machine from men from outer space. You'll meet this man after this plebeian and earthly message. The man you're going to meet in a moment or two, Tassel, from Giant Rock, California, is a most unlikely person to claim to have seen flying saucers and been in touch with people from outer space. George is a very ordinary fellow. He doesn't make any money out of his flying saucer beliefs, but boy, he really believes them. And before I start talking to George, I want to tell you, too, that I do have a couple of doubts in my mind. We all see these newspaper reports from Socorro, New Mexico, that a mysterious craft landed and took off and left blast marks in the sand. Airline pilots from time to time talk delicately about strange aircraft circling their normal aircraft in flight, perhaps even cutting off the power of their engines momentarily. We all love to talk about the mysterious and the unknown and the flying saucers. So now it's to George Van Tassel and this question.
Boy, they more messed up than me.
Time machine you're building down in California.
Well, Jack, this was the result of a formula which was given to me by a man who landed a ship at my airport in 1953. And we put this formula under...
I did drop that link back a few minutes ago to that last video. He said I can drop it again, but just letting you know.
Research tested a number of experiments on a bench in a good electronics lab in Chicago, and we produced phenomenal results with evidence that we should do it on a larger scale in order to be able to do more with it. And this evolved out of something that started in 1953 into a 4-story high machine that we're working on down there today.
Now, George, I don't care whether the machine is 4 stories high or 40 stories high or 4 inches high. When I say calmly and unexcitedly, a time machine.
I dropped the link again there for you. I forgot who asked the question now. Who was that? Anyway, there's the link right there to that last video. So there you go. Whoever it was asked for, and I don't remember.
What does your formula tell you you can do with a time machine?
Well, Jack, our formula has no time factor, which electronic formula does have. And on the other hand, electronic science has only had 2 dimensions to work with, the electric pattern and the magnetic pattern perpendicular to it. And we discovered a 3rd zone, which we call a time zone, and we are working through this zone with an effort to orient the magnetic field to give us other results than our science can obtain at present.
George, just double talk to me. A time machine means to me a little box that I can go into and go back 5,000 years or forward 10,000 years. Is that what your formula tells you you can do?
Well, Jack, this isn't a little box. This is a four-story machine focusing fields that we can orient to produce this zone big enough for a man to get into. It isn't a box.
But what happens to the man when he gets into the zone? I'm
Well,
all agog with curiosity.
Jack, we've discovered this zone is subject to thought. Now, since time doesn't record events the way we do on calendars and clocks, you could only record an event by thinking of it. Now, theoretically, we believe we can take a videotape magnetic camera into the time zone and photograph Lincoln's Gettysburg Address or Caesar's armies marching or anything that's ever happened.
All right, let me get this straight. In other words, you're telling me, like H.G. Wells imagined 50 years ago, that everything that happened in time is still there to be seen by the recreation electronically of a thought which exists.
Jack, you know how you talk into a tape on a tape recorder and play the interruptions back, identical to the play that you made. The Earth's magnetic field is the same way. You can put interruptions into it and play them back out of it. An associate of ours in creating a magnetic coupler with this principle coupled in the Earth's magnetic field and played back TV shows from stations that aren't even in business anymore.
You mean an experiment has been done to bring out of the air television programs which have been and gone?
Been and gone.
Now, where was this experiment conducted?
It was conducted in Santa Monica by an associate of mine.
Why hasn't this hit the headlines throughout the world? That's a time machine in action. If I can...
Jack, the reason it hasn't hit the world is because, as I understand it now, the Navy Department took him and the research over because he also discovered he could bounce magnetic echoes off the ionosphere and locate submarines under the ocean, regardless of where they were.
So, who is this associate of yours?
This is a fellow named Charlie Arts.
Charlie Arts?
Yeah.
And is he a free man walking around today?
Well, he's free where he is in this super secret research he's conducting.
Now, so therefore, you tell me soberly in front of this television camera that things, old television programs have been recreated out of nothing.
Played back with a picture and the sound just as good as the day they were broadcast. We've done this many times.
Why didn't you bring one up with you?
Well, this requires quite a piece of apparatus. This magnetic coupler works on around 50,000 volts, and it doesn't have any radio frequency connected with it. And actually, the television set which plays back the picture doesn't even have an antenna connected to it.
George, you know as well as I do, and you've been on television 350 times, and I've known you. I met you once 7 years ago, and I kind of like you. But you know what the people out there are saying. They're saying this man's a nut.
Well, Jack, you know, when Fulton was running his steamboat up the Hudson River, there were people still standing on the bank saying it couldn't be done.
All right, let me take you to the back, though. You have a time machine plan. You have done experiments which show you can bring the past to life. Where did this formula come from?
I love that Scotch accent. Jack, the formula came from a ship that landed at my airport in 1953 on August the 24th. Which had 4 people aboard it that came from another planet.
I'm breathless.
Well, you're not only breathless, I was breathless.
But I'm cynical, too.
Well, that's fine. That's the way to be. In fact, I'm a bigger skeptic than you are of many things.
I'm an unbeliever. Convince me that this really happened to you.
Well, this thing is very similar to a thing that's happened in our biblical records where a Lord presented Moses with a pattern to build a tabernacle. They came out of the sky, they handed him stone tablets, and this phenomena that's taking place today is as old as our history, as our civilization. This isn't anything new that's occurring. It's something that's being continued in another time of crisis when conditions affecting the people of this planet are reaching a point where somebody has to take care of the situation.
Now, I don't intend in any way to be disrespectful or blasphemous, but do you feel, and I know you're not an evangelistic type, do you feel that you're some kind of Moses receiving a new word?
Well, I don't say that, Jack. I say that what is occurring now has occurred before. There's many records of these ships landing throughout history, clear back into Sanskrit. And there are records in the 1898 Chicago newspapers that covered the front page for 3 days of a big ship setting over Chicago. When you realize we're dealing with a type of man that is almost as far above us in intelligence as we are above the lower animals, there isn't anything phenomenal in this at all.
Now, you say casually, because this is your life's work now, ships. Now, you mean flying saucer, don't you?
Well, a flying saucer was a name the press put on this thing. And actually, what they termed a flying saucer was nothing but a scout ship from the big carriers.
But I want to go back to that night in 1953. Tell me, where did this happen for people who haven't heard you talk or seen you yet?
It happened on my airport, which I've operated for the last 16 years, at Giant Rock Airport, 17 miles north of Yucca Valley in California, or 40 miles north of Palm Springs.
Now, this is a private airport for small aircraft, is it?
This is an airport used both by the military and private aircraft.
You own this airport?
I leased this airport from the United States government. I've operated it for 16 years since I retired from the flight test business in the aviation.
Right now. How old are you now, by the way, John?
I'm 54, Jack. Got 3 grown daughters, married, and 11 grandchildren.
You don't mind if I ask you the stock question? I know that you've been asked every obnoxious question that can ever have been asked. You've never been treated for any form of emotional upset.
I've never had an emotional upset other than women.
Except that night in Yucca Flats, not Yucca Flats, at Giant Rock. When
I heard that.
Ship
said he never had an emotional upset except for women. Yeah, well, we've all been there. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Now, give me the details, John, because I'm never tired of hearing the details of a man who says he has seen creatures from another world.
Well, actually, Jack, this was as simple as crossing a street and getting hit by a car. After it's over, you're the victim of the circumstance. And I didn't see the ship land. One of my son-in-laws, that wasn't my son-in-law at that time, saw it come down. Another man on the airport heard it, and he wasn't where he could see it. And the man got off of the ship and approached me before I even knew there was a ship down.
Where were you then? What time of day or night was it?
It was 2 o'clock in the morning and approximately a full moon, which is like daylight on the desert.
Were you walking about outside or what?
No, I was sound asleep when he awakened me.
This man awakened you?
Well, something awakened me.
So you got up out of your bed?
I got out of my bed and went aboard the ship at his request.
This man, in what language did he converse with you?
He talked to me in the best English equivalent to Ronald Coleman.
And he met you there and he said, what did he say? Come with me to my ship or what?
No, he said, I asked him what he wanted because we have a lot of people who come in stuck in the sand and broken axles and whatnot. And I asked him what he wanted, and he said, my name is Solganda, and I would be pleased to show you our craft.
Solganda?
Solganda.
Was the craft visible to you at this time?
It was. When he stated this, I saw beyond him the ship, which I hadn't seen before.
What did you see?
A bell-shaped type of anti-gravity ship that they operate as a scout ship out of their big carriers.
How big?
This was 36 feet in diameter and 19 feet high.
And where was it? On the ground?
No, it was hovering 10 feet off the ground.
And how did you go into this ship?
I walked with him to a spot underneath it, and an anti-gravity beam took me up through a hole in the bottom of it.
You're telling me at 2 o'clock in the morning in Giant Rock Airport, you walked underneath this hovering ship, and whammo, you went up inside.
No, you didn't go whammo. You went just about as slow as a local elevator run.
And when you got off the anti-gravity elevator, what did it look like?
I was inside of a ship about 18 feet in diameter and roughly 10 feet high to the domed ceiling, and there were 3 men on the ship, besides the one that had got off and invited me aboard.
You keep calling them man. What do you mean, man?
Well,
little green man?
They were about 5'6". They came about to my eyebrows, and they could have walked in our clothes down any of our streets, and we wouldn't have paid any attention to them.
And did you bring any proof off that ship? Were you alone in the ship?
I was alone with the 3 men until the other fellow came up behind me, and then the 4 of them were aboard.
Were there any other earthly eyewitnesses to this?
Nothing, only outside of the ship.
And these people stayed outside?
On the airport.
And did you go anywhere in this ship?
Not to my knowledge. When I got off, it was the same place it was when I got on.
What do you mean, not to your knowledge? Had the door closed when you went in or something?
I don't know, because it was below the deck.
And did these people tell you where they came from?
They didn't say where they came from, but I've been in the air game since 1927, and their instruments were unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Well, don't give me technicalities. What was different?
The difference was that we used dial instruments, and they used vertical instruments, like fluorescent tubes with marks on them.
What color were these people?
The instruments were marked in symbols similar to hieroglyphics. They were not in any language or number system we use on the earth.
What color were these people?
They looked like they were white people with a good, healthy tan.
Did they give you any indication of how old they were, or what they ate, or where they came from at all?
After we got off the ship, the man who invited me aboard, who didn't look a day over 28 years of age, told me that he was over 700 years of age in our time.
Oh, come off it, George.
That's right.
Was this the guy who gave you the formula for the time machine?
That's the man.
And what form did the formula take? Did he implant it in your mind by telepathy, or did he give you something written in English?
He spoke it to me verbally.
And you remembered this?
There's nothing to it to remember.
Will you tell me now? The formula for a time machine.
F equals 1 over T.
F equals 1 over T.
F being frequency and T being time.
And this enables me to go back to the time of Caesar's armies conquering Britain.
Well, it would enable a mathematician to work this out, yes.
And why hasn't this been acclaimed like Einstein's E equals mc squared?
Well, why hasn't the fact that the United States government's been flying anti-gravity ships since 1956 been acclaimed? Or the fact that there's a crater on the moon with a base in it since 1954, we've known this.
Well, but let's get, first of all, the U.S. Why haven't the FBI clapped you incommunicado for breaking secrets that they want to keep secret in the United States?
Well, possibly because they know this information is going to get out eventually anyway, and what I say won't make any difference.
Now, that particular night when you had this experience, did you call the police? Did you call the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the White House?
Well, I'm 17 miles from the nearest phone, Jack, and the nearest phone would get me to the sheriff's office, and it'd take them about 40 minutes to get out there.
Oh, wouldn't you have a phone on an airport?
No, we have no phone.
But you're an operating airport.
Well, we're an operating airport, but we're isolated in the middle of the desert, 17 miles from the closest town, and they've never run phones out there.
So how do you communicate with people who want to use your airport?
They fly in or write and phone to the local town where my daughter lives, and she notifies us when she comes out.
Now, you talked about a crater on the moon. Now, I thought all the moon stuff had been debunked and that nobody ever really knows what goes on the moon. What's this?
Well, this is the Gassendi crater. This is 55 miles long and oval-shaped. It's in the Mare Humorum Sea, or on the edge of it. Since 35 years ago, they wondered why this particular crater had these lines in it. And with the magnification which you can get with a larger telescope, this is what they found. These lines are tubes laying on the surface of this crater and running under some of the mountain ridges. There are 3 large dome-shaped structures in here. These tubes run clear outside of the crater, and we know they are tubes laying on the surface because the sun is shining from this angle, and this mountain peak causes this shadow.
What does it all mean? Does it mean that this is a rocket launching or a flying saucer base on the moon?
This has been a base on the moon for perhaps many thousands of years, used by these people in the spaceships to resupply their ships or whatever is required.
Not even Life magazine has accepted this is genuine, has it?
Well, the Palomar Observatory people that took the picture won't even comment on it, so...
There must be a great conspiracy of silence to keep George Van Tassel's secret of the universe away from the people.
No, it isn't to keep anything I know away from the people. It's to keep many things away from the people.
Let's talk about this picture.
This
is the time machine.
This is a picture of the machine we're building down there. This structure is actually up. We're working now on the parts on the equipment that operate it. This rim around here has armatures 57 feet in diameter, which will be better than 4 times bigger than the biggest armatures ever made before.
But is that the place where you did the experiments? By the way, how old were these television programs you pulled back out of time and space?
Well, the oldest one was 6 years back because television was 6 years old when this was done.
And what program was it? Do you remember?
I don't remember what program, but I know that on checking up on some of the stations that Art found that the station no longer existed. It was out of business.
Let's get down to some more basics now.
Have I ever been where, Buff? I don't know where you're talking about. If you're talking about the moon, of course I've been to the moon. I started to go, well, I had an opportunity to go to Mars one time, but the guy that was going to take his UFO, and go to the moon, well, it turned out he had to work that weekend, and then I couldn't go, during the week because I had to work myself. But, other than that, I hadn't been anywhere.
Are you
just being stupid there, y'all?
Making a lucrative living out of traveling around the world, evangelizing for flying around the continent, evangelizing for flying saucers?
No, Jack, I'm on a vacation to rest my wife because she's been 2 years in a 40-seat restaurant without a rest, more than anything else, and I enjoy these particular things as a sideline. I make my living on the airport, and this research is something that I've got more money into than anybody else and more contribution to it. 5 years of intensive research without any pay. We donated 10 acres of land with a well worth $23,000, and we formed this corporation for the purpose of building up and investigating this basic material.
All right, now how long is it going to take you to get your time machine in operation?
Well,
I mean, it all sounds so crazy. You must admit that I believe there are some odd things, George, but I find it hard to credit because I wasn't there myself, your own experiences.
Well, it took them around 8 years to grind the mirror for the 200-inch telescope, and the first cyclotron was something like 11 years in the progress of building.
But that cost millions, George. You haven't got millions, billions it cost.
No, we don't have the overhead, the drafts from the engineers and people sitting around the payroll. All of our effort on this is voluntary by many people in technical fields that contribute their effort to the project.
They all believe in flying saucers.
They all believe in flying saucers.
You obviously believe totally in flying saucers.
Yeah.
Because of that one. Does your wife believe in flying saucers?
Well, I don't know very many people that don't. It's as obvious as believing in heaven or afterlife or anything else. You have certain things you believe in life. You believe there's air we breathe, yet you don't see it. We fly airplanes on it. And this is an intangible. We can measure it.
But why should these people come down, from outer space? Why don't they land in the White House or in Kremlin Square in Moscow and say, hey, listen to us. We can tell you a few things. We're 700 years old. We can travel through space. We're not concerned with time differential.
Well, probably they're not concerned with giving us too much of their information because we'd only use it in our battle to destroy each other.
Did these 4 men tell you that themselves?
No, they didn't tell me that, but this is a reasonable assumption on our part that the world's divided in 2 camps, each capable of eliminating the whole civilization. And if we were to go to another planet and observe this condition, we would certainly be a little cautious about who we talk to or what we reveal.
Yeah, but you yourself, was that the only experience you had? Mind you, that's 11 years ago in 1953, George.
That's right.
When you claimed to me you went up in this elevator into the spaceship and met the guy who spoke like Ronald Coleman. Was that your only contact with the...
That was the only contact I had with the people from the ship.
Did you have you had any other contacts with people?
I've had a recent contact last September, 1963.
Well, I don't have to ask you. Tell me.
Well, in this case, they drove a car into the airport. They didn't come in a ship. They're walking among us on the earth all the time, and we don't realize it.
I'm breathless. They. How many was they?
The they in the ship was 4 men.
They in the car?
The man that came in, there was a man came in by himself in September.
Well, you'll be telling me he had Martian license plates on the car.
No. They drove a standard American Cadillac.
And what did they want with you in 1963, 10 years later?
They gave me some more information pertinent to electronic and magnetic research.
But how did you know they were from some mysterious place in outer space?
You don't know unless they want you to know, and then they'll demonstrate some thing that they can do that we can't do. It's humanly impossible for us to do.
What did they demonstrate to you which convinced you, an apparently sober, sensible, balanced person who nevertheless believes in flying saucers that convinced you they were unearthly people?
Well, they demonstrated the ability in front of 19 people sitting in a lounge, for instance, that they could sit there and disappear before your eyes and reappear. In fact, the man did this 3 times.
For you and your friends?
For 19 witnesses that were sitting in our lounge.
Vanished in front of your eyes?
Sit right there in a chair like you're there, and then you're not there, and then you're back there. He did this 3 times.
Now, I'm going to disappear, but purely for 1 minute for this message. The previous foregoing interview with George Van Tassel of Giant Rock Airport, California, was not, I must stress, presented to you as a scientific examination of George's claims. There are so many holes in George's claims, even to the layman.
Muted again. That's enough of that one for me. I thought it was going to be more about, Operation or Project Looking Glass, but wasn't quite about that so much. So anyway, I got what he's talking about, but still, I just want to be more than that. Let's see here. Go with this and see what this is about. Oops.
You're listening to the Corbett Report. CorbettReport.com.
Well, what happened to my sound?
Many people believe public relations is press agentry, flackery, publicity. Public relations is not that. It is a two-way street, advising the client on attitudes and actions to win over the public on whom viability of the unit depends, and then educating, informing, and persuading the public to accept these social goods, ideas, concepts, or whatever.
Welcome to episode 33 of the Corbett Report. Meet Edward Bernays. What you have just been listening to is in fact an audio recording of Edward Bernays, a man who you have likely never heard of. There's no reason to feel ashamed of that. In fact, very few people probably know of Mr. Edward Bernays, although his influence on the 20th century cannot be underestimated, and his ideas still persist with us today in the 21st century. The fact that he's little known is rather ironic, considering this, the opening lines of one of his most famous works, from Chapter 1, called Organizing Chaos. The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government, which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. As I say, those are the opening words to Edward Bernays' most famous writings, a 1928 book called Propaganda. Yes, this is the man who literally wrote the book on propaganda, whose ideas influenced millions, and whose brilliant brainwashing propaganda techniques inspired the likes of Joseph Goebbels in Nazi Germany. You have likely never heard of Edward Bernays, as I say, but you have heard of his uncle, Sigmund Freud. The interesting thing is that Edward Bernays was the man who made Sigmund Freud a household name in the United States. To get an idea of how Sigmund Freud's American nephew popularized his ideas and invented the art of public relations, or mass brainwashing propaganda, let's take a listen to a whitewash documentary from NPR. This short audio examination of Edward Bernays' work gives us an idea of just how influential Edward Bernays has been.
This story of Sigmund Freud begins at the Florida Avenue Grill in Washington, D.C. Now, it might seem a little strange to start a story about the father of psychoanalysis in a soul food restaurant, but it turns out that if you look closely, there's a trace of Freud's influence even here.
I'm gonna have bacon and eggs, cheese and the eggs.
Bacon and eggs, the all-American breakfast, is the most popular dish at the grill. According to waitress Catherine Leach, no other meal even comes close.
About 60%, I would say.
Are ordering
Bacon and eggs.
But bacon and eggs wasn't always America's first choice for breakfast. The idea that this was the best way to start your day, like so many other things in American life, was actually systematically engineered by a public relations agent. In this case, a public relations agent who was greatly influenced by and intimately connected to Sigmund Freud, his nephew, Edward Bernays. Bernays grew up in America, but spent each summer walking the hills of Austria with his famous uncle. And during those outings, he absorbed many lessons about the inner workings of human psychology, including, says Stuart Ewan, history professor at Hunter College, the conviction that one of Western civilization's most basic assumptions about human nature was deeply flawed.
Up until the early 1900s, one of the sort of fundamental assumptions was this kind of Enlightenment idea that people are rational beings, and that if you present a well-orchestrated case, you can persuade people. That's the basic logic of the Declaration of Independence.
Freud, however, had a different vision of the human animal. He believed that people weren't rational at all, despite their apparently civilized exterior.
Underneath it is this sort of turmoil of instincts and of unconscious desires. And those kinds of things, although repressed, still exert an enormous power over the way people act.
Sex, aggression, security, self-preservation. When Freud looked out at the world, he saw these drives motivating even the most ordinary activities. A concept, says Anne Bernays, daughter of Edward, grandniece of Freud, her father quickly absorbed.
He ingested it early and just used it. That is, if you want to make somebody do what you want them to, you don't hook into what they say they want. You try to find out what they really want.
Which brings us back to breakfast, to the mid-1920s, when, as a young publicist, Bernays was asked by the Beechnut Packing Company to improve sales of its primary product, bacon. Author Larry Tye has written a book on Bernays called The Father of Spin.
He was basically hired by them to help restore sales that had sagged in a country that was on the run and was trimming its morning meal to juice, toast, and coffee. Now, the average PR guy back then would have told them, oh, put your bacon on sale, and that's the way to sell more of it, or go out and advertise, take out expensive ads in newspapers.
But Bernays clearly wasn't your average PR guy. Taking his cue from Freud, Bernays constructed a campaign intended to speak to a value much more basic than thrift: physical security.
Food is about more than something just to nourish you. It's something to create a sense of well-being about what you're putting into your body.
To connect bacon and well-being, Bernays distributed a survey to doctors. He asked one simple question: do you support a hearty breakfast or a light one? The doctors responded that hearty was best, so Bernays came up with his own definition of hearty: bacon and eggs. With the weight of medical authority behind him, he then initiated an educational campaign, and the All-American Breakfast was born.
Before Eddie Bernays, we never thought of bacon and eggs as the All-American Breakfast. So he was...
Buff, I can always be better, no doubt about it. I mean, thank you for asking too, but I mean, I'm not going to complain. I'm not complaining, but I am complaining because I feel like shit most of the time, to be honest with you. But I'm all right. Thanks for asking, Buff.
Not just redefining a particular product, he was redefining the whole way America thought about the way they ate breakfast in a way that persists today.
Of course, Freud's insight into unconscious motivations had a profound impact in a variety of intellectual arenas. In mental health, generations of Americans became archaeologists of the mind. The concept also influenced economic thought and supplied countless graduate students in English with thesis material. But the way this idea transformed public relations is a lesson in unintended consequences. Prior to Freud and his nephew, publicity was all about emulating journalism. But after Freud and Bernays, the goal shifted from rational appeals to the stimulation of visceral impulse. Bernays wrote extensively about precisely how to apply Freud's complex theories, and his techniques were broadly adopted, used to sell everything from soap to presidents, cigarettes to foreign policy, and possibly even genocide.
A reporter from UPI once came back after a visit with Adolf Hitler's PR chief, Joseph Goebbels, and told Eddie Bernays that in Goebbels' library, where they were doing the interview, one or two of Eddie Bernays' books were on those shelves. And it was clear that propaganda people, for better or for worse, used his theories and his ideas all around the world.
Although Freud and Bernays corresponded regularly until Freud's death in 1939, apparently Freud never had a very clear understanding of how his ideas were being applied, and often recoiled when his nephew proposed some new plan to popularize his work.
Eddie Bernays was perpetually suggesting to Sigmund Freud in these letters ways of commercializing his complex psychodynamic theories. He offered at one point to help Sigmund Freud make a whole lot of money if he could sort of put him into quick ditties that housewives and that busy people could sort of remember, these take-home messages.
Freud quickly declined.
Yeah, but it's going to be, I think it's 27th, 28th next month, something like that. I got it wrote down, but I don't remember exactly when it is. That's not the scan. I got to go back to see the doctor again before they'll do another scan. But anyway, at least that's what they told me so far.
Bernays' offer. His biographer, Larry Tye.
Freud saw this as consummately American and just vulgar. And that's probably the way he would have seen if he had understood all the real ramifications of public relations and the way the career developed. I think Freud would have been shocked and outraged by a lot of what happened, but he also would have thought that was America and that was his nephew.
Although Bernays was tremendously proud of his work, in time he too found himself disturbed by how his ideas and techniques were employed by people with whom he disagreed. Anne Bernays.
He thought it was going to be used well, this kind of manipulative power. He thought or hoped that it was going to be used only for the good of everybody, which I think is unrealistic.
Today, focus groups and opinion polls are used throughout the world to mine the subterranean desires of the consumer. Marketers use MRI machines to peer inside the brain. There are instruments that track eye movements, pulse, skin temperature, all in an effort to better understand emotional response. And despite the fact that we live in the so-called information age, much of the material that bombards us, that tells us what to eat, who to vote for, what to wear, how to feel about war, is not, says Professor Ewan, intended to appeal to our minds.
It's not that the public is incapable of thought, it's that the kind of material that's being shoveled in our direction is designed to bypass thought.
And for that we can thank, at least in part, Sigmund Freud. For NPR News, I'm Elise Spiegel in Washington.
As I say, despite the fact that that audio excerpt has some interesting information about Bernays, it ultimately amounts to little more than a whitewash. I think that's evident from the way that his daughter, Anne Bernays, attempts to spin his legacy. Let's listen again to the comments that Anne Bernays makes about her father, someone who I think we could agree has a vested interest in maintaining his reputation.
He thought it was going to be used well, this kind of manipulative power. He thought or hoped that it was going to be used only for the good of everybody, which I think is unrealistic.
Now that makes Edward Bernays sound like an eminently reasonable character. Yes, I mean, he was a bit idealistic, a bit of a starry-eyed dreamer who believed that these brainwashing techniques could only be used for good, but, well, unfortunately they were used by people with nefarious purposes, something that Edward Bernays obviously had no control over, and thus he could not be blamed for any bad effects of this propaganda. Of course, that's a load of bunkum, and can be instantly disproven by taking a look at some public relations campaigns that Edward Bernays was involved in, other than the bacon and eggs campaign, which of course sounds pretty harmless. What campaigns am I talking about? Well, for an example, let's turn to this excellent documentary entitled The Century of the Self. This documentary is widely available online, and I heartily suggest that my listeners check out at least the first part of this 3-part documentary entitled Happiness Machines. This is an excellent look at how the worlds of psychoanalysis, politics, propaganda, and advertising all interconnected in the early part of the 20th century to produce some of the mass manipulation techniques which we now take for granted as part of our daily existence. It's important to examine this history, though, to see where a lot of these techniques come from. And still, I think, if someone accused a company in this day and age of employing some of the very techniques which Edward Bernays was affecting almost a century ago, they would probably be touted as conspiracy theorists or paranoid delusionals. So in order to dispel that myth, let's take a listen to a section of Happiness Machines from the Century of the Self documentary, in order to get a sense not only of how psychoanalysis has been employed in the art of propaganda, but also as to how evil and manipulative Edward Bernays himself was, and how uncaring he was about the ends of his propaganda. Let's take a listen to this.
Bernays set out to experiment with the minds of the popular classes. His most dramatic experiment was to persuade women to smoke. At that time, there was a taboo against women smoking, and one of his early clients, George Hill, the president of the American Tobacco Corporation, asked Bernays to find a way of breaking it.
He said, we're losing half of our market because men have invoked a taboo against women smoking in public. Can you do anything about that? I said, let me think about it. And then I said, have I your permission to see a psychoanalyst to find out what cigarettes mean to women? He said, what'll it cost? So I called up Dr. Brill, A.A. Brill, who was a leading psychoanalyst in New York at that time.
How come you didn't call your uncle? Why didn't you call your uncle?
Because he was in Vienna.
A.A. Brill was one of the first psychoanalysts in America, and for a large fee, he told Bernays that cigarettes were a symbol of the penis and of male sexual power. He told Bernays that if he could find a way to connect cigarettes with the idea of challenging male power, then women would smoke, because then they would have their own penises. Every year, New York held an Easter Day parade to which thousands came, and Bernays decided to stage an event there. He persuaded a group of rich debutantes to hide cigarettes under their clothes. Then they should join the parade, and at a given signal from him, they were to light up the cigarettes dramatically. Bernays then informed the press that he had heard that a group of suffragettes were preparing to protest by lighting up what they called torches of freedom.
He knew this would be an outcry, and he knew that all of the photographers would be there to capture this moment. And so he was ready with a phrase, which was torches of freedom. And so here you have a symbol, women, young women, debutantes, smoking a cigarette in public with a phrase that means anybody who believes in this kind of equality pretty much has to support them in the ensuing debate about this, because torches of freedom. I mean, what's on all...
And kiss off, don't you enjoy that cigarette too much as you smoke it there now.
all American coins, it's liberty. She's holding up the torch, you see? And so all of this is there together. There's emotion, there's memory, there's a rational phrase, even though it's using a lot of emotional elements, it's a phrase that works in a rational sense. All of this is together. And so the next day, this was not just in all of the New York papers, it was across the United States and around the world. And from that point forward, the sale of cigarettes to women
that's what I call
began to rise. He had made them socially acceptable with a single symbolic act.
What Bernays had created was the idea that if a woman smoked, it made her more powerful and independent, an idea that still persists today.
Embrace me, my sweet embrace.
It made him realize that it was possible to persuade people to behave irrationally if you link products to their emotional desires and feelings. The idea that smoking actually made women freer was completely irrational, but it made them feel more independent. It meant that irrelevant objects could become powerful emotional symbols of how you wanted to be seen by others.
Eddie Bernays saw the way to sell product was not to sell it to your intellect, that you ought to buy an automobile, but that you will feel better about it if you have this automobile. I think he originated that idea, that they want.
Well, Van, being as you're going to bed, I guess have a good one, brother, and thanks for hanging out with us a while. Take it easy, Van, and we'll see you on the next one, I hope.
Weren't just purchasing something, but they were engaging themselves emotionally or personally in the product or service. That it's not, you think you need a new piece of clothing, but you'll feel better with the piece of clothing. That was his contribution in a very real sense. We see it all over the place today, but I think he originated the idea of the emotional connect to a product or service.
So here we have the father of propaganda and spin, Edward Bernays, using an ingenious brainwashing propaganda technique in order to sell a deadly product to a half of the population who had previously been free from the clutches of the tobacco peddler.
Good night, Amy, and thanks for hanging out with us. And be sure and join us on the next one now.
By a social taboo. The breaking down of that taboo can be traced directly back to Edward Bernays' PR stunt at the Easter Day Parade in New York. And indeed, it was devastatingly effective. That's just one example of the numerous examples of how Edward Bernays used his skill in media manipulation to sell a deadly product to an unsuspecting public. What other examples exist? Well, let's listen to an interview with Christopher Bryson, a former BBC reporter who wrote a book about how that deadly poison, sodium fluoride and stannous fluoride, ended up in our drinking water. A recent Scientific American article about fluoride has only confirmed what scientists and researchers have known about that chemical for decades, namely that it is a poison which may be doing irreparable damage to our bodies, including adverse effects on the bones, the brain, the thyroid gland, and, yes, the teeth. What the Scientific American article leaves out is what most people have left out for a long time regarding fluoride, namely 3 important facts. One, that fluoride was put into the water in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany and the gulags in Russia in order to create a docile worker, as that is one of the effects of this danger.
Thank you, William. It's nice to be back too, brother. And I got to tell you, I hope I can start coming on more than I have in the past couple of weeks, but you know, all I can do is play it by ear. But believe me, I want to be here. It's more than y'all want me to be here. I can tell you that for sure.
Dangerous compound. 2, that sodium fluoride used to be a common ingredient in rat poisons and roach poisons in the United States. And 3, that fluoride is in fact a hazardous industrial waste byproduct that is created, among other things, in the production of aluminum, and that the first people to heavily influence the debate about fluoridating water was...
What do you mean you accidentally saw me on, Buff? You're supposed to be checking for me every night. Just messing with you, Buff. I don't blame you. I'd back off too. It's no more than I've been on lately. But I hope to be on more here in the, next few days. Not saying I will, but I hope to be.
Was the aluminum industry, which was looking at a way of gaining public acceptance of the growing pollution of fluoride in the water supplies around aluminum.
Good night, Chrissy. Thanks for hanging out with us. Have a blessed one, girl.
Factories. Christopher Bryson's book, The Fluoride Deception, reveals these facts and many more about this dangerous compound. But another fact that his book uncovers is the link between Edward Bernays and the fluoride deception.
The book makes clear for the first time that the selling of fluoride to the American public was done by the best in the business, by the father of public relations, Edward Bernays. Edward Bernays is Sigmund Freud's nephew, and he was a Machiavellian genius, small in size, yet cast a towering shadow over the 20th century. Bernays understood that there was a liberal sentiment coursing through the 20th century, and that if you could hitch your commercial wagon to that star, then you could make your client.
Oh, well, sorry, Chris Cat. I thought you meant you were going to bed. But I'm glad you're hanging out with us some more.
It's a lot of money. In 1916, Bernays had suffragettes march in the Easter parade in New York City, holding cigarettes as torches of liberty. And he cooked up that scheme on behalf of the American Tobacco Company and its director, George Hill, who was paying Bernays's salary. Well, my book uncovers correspondence between Bernays and the National Institutes of Dental Research.
Hello, Leanne, and welcome.
Bernays was asked to come to Washington by the NIDR to help create their PR campaign to sell fluoride to the nation. Bernays understood that people have an unconscious trust in their doctor or their dentist, and if you can persuade doctors and dentists that fluoride is safe and good, then you're able to reach the rest of the nation. People believe their doctors and dentists, and that was a way of promoting fluoride for Bernays.
Now, those two examples obviously put the lie to Anne Bernays' claim earlier in this episode that her father was only interested in the public good and couldn't abide the idea that his brainwashing PR techniques could be used for nefarious purposes. Now, both those examples happen to come from the field of public health, but I can assure my listeners that Edward Bernays had his hand in many other cookie jars, including the political cookie jar. One could only shudder to think about what would be the results of such masterful propaganda being applied in the political sphere. And Joseph Goebbels in Nazi Germany gave us a frightening vision of what that would entail. But it's important to note that even after the Nazi atrocities of World War II, Edward Bernays was an all-too willing operative for the CIA in selling their operations around the world, including their operation to overthrow the democratically elected government of Guatemala, which they did in the 1950s. For more information on that, let's turn back to another clip from The Century of the Self.
One of Bernays' main clients was the giant United Fruit Company. They owned vast banana plantations in Guatemala in Central America. For decades, United Fruit had controlled the country through pliable dictators. It was known as a banana republic. But in 1950, a young officer, Colonel Arbenz, was elected president. He promised to remove United Fruit's control over the country. And in 1953, he announced the government would take over much of their land. It was a massively popular move, but a disaster for United Fruit, and they turned to Bernays to help get rid of Arbenz.
United Fruit brings in Bernays, and he basically understood that what United Fruit Company had to do was change this from being a popularly elected government that was doing some things that were good for the people there into this being very close to the American shore, a threat to American democracy, that it being at a time in the Cold War when Americans responded to issues of the Red Scare and what communism might do. He was trying to transform this and brilliantly did transform it into an issue of a communist threat very close to our shores, taking United Fruit again as a commercial client out of the picture and making it look like a question of American democracy, American values being threatened.
In reality, Arbenz was a democratic socialist with no links to Moscow. But Bernays set out to turn him into a communist threat to America. He organized a trip to Guatemala for influential American journalists. Few of them knew anything about the country or its politics. Bernays arranged for them to be entertained and to meet selected Guatemalan politicians who told them that Arbenz was a communist controlled by Moscow. During the trip, there was also a violent anti-American demonstration in the capital. Many of those who worked for United Fruit were convinced it had been organized by Bernays himself. He also created a fake independent news agency in America called the Middle American Information Bureau. It bombarded the American media with press releases saying that Moscow was planning to use Guatemala as a beachhead to attack America. All of this had the desired effect.
In Guatemala, the Jacob Arbenz regime became increasingly communistic after its inauguration in 1951. Communists in the Congress and high governmental positions controlled major committees, labor and farm groups, and propaganda facilities. They agitated and led in demonstrations against neighboring countries and the United States.
What was profoundly new in terms of what Bernays did is he took this menace to our backyard in Guatemala. For the first time, we saw Reds a couple hundred miles from New Orleans, who Eddie Bernays had us believing were a true threat to us, that it was going to be a Soviet outpost in our backyard.
But what Bernays was doing was not just trying to blacken the Arbenz regime. He was part of a secret plot. President Eisenhower had agreed that America should topple the Arbenz government, but secretly. The CIA were instructed to organize a coup. Working with the United Fruit Company, the CIA trained and armed a rebel army and found a new leader for the country called Colonel Armas. The CIA agent in charge was Howard Hunt, later one of the Watergate burglars.
What we wanted to do was have a terror campaign to terrify Arbenz particularly, terrify his troops, much as the German Stuka bombers terrified the population of Holland, Belgium, and Poland at the onset of World War II, and just rendered everybody paralyzed.
As planes flown by CIA pilots dropped bombs on Guatemala City, Edward Bernays carried on his propaganda campaign in the American press. He was preparing the American population to see this as the liberation of Guatemala by freedom fighters for democracy.
He totally understood that the coup would happen when the public and the press, when conditions in the public and the press allowed for a coup to happen, and he created those conditions. He was totally savvy in terms of just what he was helping create there in terms of this overthrow. But ultimately, he was reshaping reality, reshaping public opinion in a way that's undemocratic and manipulative.
I'd like my listeners to take special note of what they've just heard, as it's not often that a single historical figure can throw the forces that are ranged against freedom and liberty into such stark relief. But think about it. Edward Bernays worked with the White House and the CIA to demonize Arbenz in Guatemala in order to protect the United Fruit Company's interests. The selfsame company that General Smedley Butler fought wars for back in the early part of the 20th century. And regular listeners of the Corbett Report will remember General Smedley Butler from episode 14, in which we learnt that he testified to the McCormick-Dickstein Committee in Congress that he had been recruited for a plot led by wealthy industrialists, including Prescott Bush, grandfather of the current president of the United States, to lead a fascist overthrow of the democratically elected government of the United States of America. And in that documentary clip that we just listened to, we also heard the testimony of E. Howard Hunt, who of course led the CIA operation in Guatemala, which was nicknamed PB Success. E. Howard Hunt, of course, confessed to being part of the plot to assassinate JFK, a plot that also included LBJ, a fact that listeners to episode 21 of the Corbett Report would remember well. And indeed, Edward Bernays' PR techniques, which he helped popularize in the early part of the 20th century, run in an historically integral line from the mid part of the 20th century in his efforts to demonize Guatemala all the way up to today with the current White House administration. Some of those techniques ham-handedly applied by the Bush administration include this, which was reported on from the Washington Post, March 15, 2005, headline, Administration Rejects Ruling on PR Videos. Quote, the Bush administration, rejecting an opinion from the Government Accountability Office, said last week that it is legal for federal agencies to feed TV stations prepackaged news stories that do not disclose the government's role in producing them. That message, in memos sent Friday to federal agency heads and general counsels, contradicts a February 17th memo from Comptroller General David M. Walker. Walker wrote that such stories, designed to resemble independently reported broadcast news stories so that TV stations can run them without editing, violate provisions in annual appropriations laws that ban covert propaganda. End quote. What that article refers to, of course, is a 2005 scandal regarding the Bush administration buying propaganda time on broadcast news to run stories edited and produced by the White House without proper sourcing so that viewers would think they were actually watching real news. Now, that 2005 scandal involved $250 million being spent by the White House in placing these stories in the network news. And since that time, the practice has continued unabated. Now, ham-handed attempts at placing news stories like that obviously do not hold a candle to the masterful techniques of a genius like Edward Bernays, but they at least show the ready willingness of the current administration to use whatever techniques they can to brainwash the public. And of course, who can forget this scandal from late 2007 regarding the Federal Emergency Management Agency's response to the wildfires which were then raging in California?
After faking a news conference, instead of facing the usual grilling from journalists, the Emergency Management Agency had its own employees, you see them sitting down right there, pretend to be reporters and ask the questions. Well, now the White House is responding.
It is not a practice that we would employ here at the White House, or that we certainly don't condone it. We didn't know about it beforehand. FEMA has issued an apology saying that they had an error in judgment when they were attempting to try to get out a lot of information to reporters who are asking for answers to a variety of questions in regards to the wildfires in California. It's not something I would have condoned, and I'm sure will not do it again.
NBC's Jeannie Ohm is live at the White House. Jeannie, FEMA calls it an error in judgment. I understand the Department of Homeland Security says something very different.
You're right. This is a story that is growing ever since it was first published in the Washington Post. The White House said they had just heard about it then. Well, this afternoon, there was a strong response from the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees FEMA. And I want to read part of it. Quote, "This is inexcusable and offensive, and stunts like this will not be tolerated or repeated. It was a lapse of judgment, and we find it offensive, and it won't happen again." Laura Keener added that, in fact, the senior leadership is now taking a look at whether FEMA staff will be reprimanded over this incident. So certainly it's not the kind of press FEMA was looking for. They were really trying to show that they had learned from the mistakes of Hurricane Katrina and were really being proactive, very quick on its feet to respond to the wildfires in California. Instead, now a lot of people talking about this staged news conference earlier in the week.
And Jeannie, kind of explain the details. My understanding is, of course, that they called this press conference, very quickly with only 15 minutes to go. And so that didn't give reporters the chance to actually show up. And then I guess there was a call in that reporters could call into, but they said no questions. Well, then who was asking the questions at the press conference?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Around here, when you give 15 minutes notice, that's clearly not enough time for any crews to get in position. So the video feed was actually provided by FEMA. So you didn't have reporters getting to the briefing. They did provide an 800 number, but you couldn't even ask questions. So who was asking the questions? It was actually FEMA staff, including some people who work in public affairs. A total of 6 questions were asked. Questions such as, how is FEMA doing? Have they improved from their lessons? So there certainly was no follow-up that you would typically expect once you get a standard response, trying to find out more probing questions, if you will.
All right, NBC's Jeannie Ohm, thank you so much.
But of course, FEMA is a perfectly respectful organization that deserves our full trust, and you definitely shouldn't go to geopoliticalmonitor.com and look at the background or article about U.S. FEMA camps, because I'm sure they're building these secretive concentration camp-like structures for good purposes only. Couldn't possibly have anything to do with what would happen in the event of martial law. And again, don't look into Infraguard and the people who are in the Infraguard system telling reporters that they've been given orders to shoot to kill in the event of the implementation of martial law, because none of that information is important. All kidding aside, I hope what this episode has illustrated is that people in positions of power have been polishing their PR techniques over the last century, making sure they're just right.
And that was basically all of that. So I'm just going to come back to here. And because I tell you, this new thing that we've learned about Buff with his baby chicks is just amazing. I'm telling you the truth. And he says, Sadie's keeping an eye on his baby chicks. Well, I knew somebody had to. It wasn't going to be Buff. Yeah. He says they have another shower. That's good to hear, Buff. And you got them in the bathtub. But why you got them in the bathtub anyway? Are you trying to give them a hint to take a shower or what? Oh, just messing with you, Buck. You know that. All right. So on to the next one. Let's see. Which one, though? I'm going to have to do something else here. It's showing that one up there for whatever reason. And I don't know why, but it ain't. But I'll try it again. Here we go. This thing gets contrary once in a while. It don't want to work right. And away we go.
All of you can start looking up and seeing this. The United States government, NASA, the U.S. Air Force, is sending up canisters into the atmosphere filled with chemicals.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with...
Yeah, this guy here is seeding the stratosphere of something that's not good for any of us.
Particles that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community and other geoengineering initiatives.
We shall propose further cooperative effort between all the nations in weather prediction and eventually in weather control.
What we're seeing now, and I first could not believe it, and I started looking at the skies, and these are not normal. They're not natural. There's something going on. I don't know who it is or why they're doing it. All I can testify is it's not natural and it's not normal. It's got to be some outside influence doing that.
I'm here to give you testimony that chemtrails, they're not contrails, are indeed real. They're spraying almost every day. I watch the clouds and watch the spraying program going on. I want to tell you that we're in very great danger from the pollution that's coming down over us. And we've been led astray by the military-industrial complex, and they're responsible for the cloud's creation and weather manipulation programs. They're dark operations.
When you look up at the sun and you see a white haze, that is aluminum floating in the air right now, and it's coming from the aircraft.
You want some figures? Okay, latest water test, tested the rain. 13,100 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rain in 2013. Normally, it should be zero.
If people are finding contamination, wouldn't they come here to address it? But nothing's being done? I don't know. We're investigating this, and there's a huge concern that people are getting sick. Well, I mean, we've interviewed several people. We've been here for a week. Yeah. So you're saying there is no concern? I mean, there is a concern. Many people in the county have told us that they've addressed specifically with you this very issue, and they're saying nothing's being done.
That barium and aluminum is being dumped out of airplanes because they can see it in the contrails going over.
Okay. Here's my question. If there's aluminum contamination, which is very toxic, is that something that you're supposed to deal with?
If it's in the air.
It appears that there is contamination. Does that concern you? I mean, personally,
it doesn't appear to me that there's contamination.
Does it concern you if there is? You're flat out denying
it doesn't appear to me that there's contamination.
Okay. If somebody could prove that there was, would you be willing to look into this?
No.
So even if they did air quality tests, I mean, who would have to do the test for you to recognize that it would be a problem?
The federal government's doing the testing. They have.
That wasn't his question.
Well, they would have to do the test.
Well, hello there, Miss Lisa Anderson, and welcome to the show. I know you said you've been watching, but welcome anyway. Good to see you, Lisa.
There's no way that we could do the test.
The reason we asked for you is because many people told us that this information has been presented to you. Many people also believe that you're involved with the cover-up. and that concerns a lot of people.
I'm here with Kristen Megan, who's actually a U.S. military whistleblower. She has an amazing, fascinating story that we will share with you here today. Now, Kristen, can you tell us what branch of the military you were in and what you uncovered?
Sure. I was in the Air Force on active duty for 9 years, and I worked in bioenvironmental engineering. One part of that process was to approve chemicals, hazardous materials. You know, what are you using? Why do you need it? Where's it being used? And tracking that disposal. After it being brought to my attention about chemtrails or geoengineering, I used to think it was crazy. It actually was disrespectful to my line of work, because here we are trying to prevent environmental aspects and impacts and not have anybody get sick from our operations. But in an attempt to debunk, it changed my life. I started noticing things. I started noticing large quantities on the system where I would approve chemicals that did not have a manufacturer name, wasn't tied to a building. When I started asking questions, I slowly became demonized. A couple years passed after that when I asked again and people realized I was kind of being more vocal about it on social media. I was starting to be thrown into a mental institution and have my daughter taken away.
Wow.
That changed my life. I no longer view the military the same way, and I feel like after 9 years of trying to uphold an oath, I'm able to do that now. I feel they're getting ready to admit it, and they're trying to sell it to us. You know, it's kind of like they sell vaccines to us, they sell fluoride to us. You know, fluoride is a mining waste product. Well, how can we make that good? You know, put it in your water. So I think that they're trying to now kind of admit it and act like they're going to start doing it, and they've already been doing it.
Okay, she's got the snow lit. Let's see what it does. It's not dripping at all.
Okay. So I've seen these things on YouTube about the snow not melting and just turning black when you put fire to it. So I'm going to go outside here, get some snow. Get some snow.
Hello, jet lag.
Well, snow I just picked up outside. I'm just packing it in. Here's the snow I just picked up. You guys saw me pick it up outside off my porch. Check this out. Dude, that is weird. It doesn't melt. There's no drops of water. That is weird. That is weird, man. Look, it just like turns black.
Like styrofoam.
You guys haven't seen one drip.
In the snow on Mount Shasta, pristine Mount Shasta, 61,000 micrograms per liter, 4 times the amount that is found in the soil up there. Where in the hell is this stuff coming from?
But NASA is a corporation. I want you to know that.
NASA has also conducted a research program in what they call metallized fuels. We're actually putting aluminum oxide right in the fuel because it has 2 atoms of aluminum and 3 atoms of oxygen. So during the combustion process, it releases all that oxygen and dramatically increases efficiency, but it leaves the aluminum in the air.
Alex Dimitrick explains what we could see.
Hi, my name is Rich Moore. I'm a scientist at NASA's Langley Research Center in Hampton, Virginia, in the United States.
What is your specific job here on this mission?
So I'm an airborne atmospheric scientist, and I'm interested in understanding how aerosols or particles that are emitted by jet engines in the atmosphere go on to evolve in the atmosphere. The people who sit here, the left seat is the mission director, and the right seat is his assistant. And what they're doing is they're monitoring the power that's drawn by all of the different racks. And so they have full control over all of the different experiments, which is really important for a NASA flying laboratory. Yeah, we're trying to keep this thing as full as possible. Yeah. And there's a lot of trade-offs. We want to minimize, I talked about the sticky gases. We worry about particles being lost to the walls of the tube as well. We try to keep the tubing lengths as short as possible for the samples we're making. And so we have a number of different probes, each targeting a different size range. So some probes may target say 1 micron to 50 microns, and other ones may target larger particles. So a micron is 10 to the negative 6. So we're talking about 1,000 times bigger than those soot particles that I described. And so it's a big plane. We've got instruments mounted on the fuselage, and then we also have instruments mounted on the wingtips.
Starting in 1993, it was called in vitro toxicity of aluminum nanoparticles in rat alveolar macrophages. That's a real fancy way of saying testing the effect of aluminum nanoparticles on the white blood cells in the little air sacs in your lung, the alveoli. And what they found in this 8-year study was that these particles, when you're exposed to them long enough, it suppresses the ability of your white blood cells to defend you from airborne infections coming into your lungs. So it suppresses your immune system. But they also found that these same particles, once they get into your system, they can actually go through the barrier in each one of the cells. They get inside the cells. And these particles can actually suppress the ability of mitochondria, which are in the cells that help to gobble up toxins and things that would be harmful to the nucleus and the reproduction process of the cells in your body. These processes are suppressed. And so essentially by breathing this material in, your immune system is dramatically suppressed.
They said, we're going to control the weather by the year 2025. I asked them, what are they doing spraying these chemicals on the public? I said, there's violation of United States Code 50 USC 1520, which prohibits the American government from experimenting on the U.S. citizens with chemical agents. I said that law also requires who's ever experimenting, when the federal government does it, that they have to report to Congress within 30 days. They wrote back, they said they don't know what I'm talking about. I think we have enough evidence that there's this spraying going all over the place.
We were warned about the takeover of our freedoms by the military-industrial complex by both Eisenhower and Kennedy. They're gaining traction on us, folks. We are in trouble more than just a spraying program.
All I can say is it's about time we get up in arms about this, because it is affecting our health. It's high time that we as citizens of this great country take action.
The most amazing thing is that cloud up there, which was generated by the engine, and in about an hour's time, someone in Mississippi is going to get wet washing. It will actually rain.
13,100 micrograms per liter of aluminum in the rain in 2013. Normally, it should be 0.
It's raining. That's unbelievable. NASA's playing God. It's making its own weather.
I'm gonna make a 360. These motherfuckers went off today. These motherfuckers went off today. Look at all that shit. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Sorry to inform you, these are not commercial airlines. NASA's got a website up explaining what they are. It's fucking hilarious. They're basically telling us what we already know. The world should be outraged. Look at that. Is that cool? That's all right? No big deal? Yeah, they're just clouds. Yeah, a plane fucking made. Contrails and chemtrails are different. Contrails dissipate within 30 seconds. That's normal. But chemtrails, when there's metallic particles in them, they stay over your head in the sky all day and spread out and completely cover a perfectly clear day. It happens all the time, right above you. But people are just driving, it's right above you. Right above you, boom, right above you every day. So eventually they're going to tell us that they're going to do it. Eventually they're going to tell us, this is all going to be proven right now. Eventually they're going to tell us, the CIA, they're going to tell us they're going to do it, but they're going to tell us it's that they're going to do it. Not that they've been doing it. They've been doing it. No, not that they've been doing it, but they're going to do it, and that it's going to save the planet. Dudes who own everything. Rich is low level. Rothschilds, Rockefellers. It was started by David Rockefeller. The CFR, the Trilateral Commission, is another one. There's these groups of unelected people, these rich people who are dictating what's going to happen. So how could anybody say that shit ain't real? If you think if you still think it's bullshit, you are 100% in a trance, and you need to get that fluoride scraped off your pineal gland. You got too much fluoride.
Do you know that more people are getting lung cancer that don't smoke than ever in the history of time?
If they're spraying, he's talking about spraying, he called it stratospheric aerosol injections, SAI for short. That means spraying metallic particles in the sky. You don't think that's going to cause some kind of, I mean, people are all like, oh, fucking gluten and GMOs, and yet they don't give a fuck about the air they breathe.
Chemtrails. You know, when I was a kid, I used to see these trails in the sky all the time, and so, oh, that's cool. A jet just went over. And then you started to see a whole bunch of them. And next thing you know, everybody in your neighborhood was fighting and arguing, and you didn't know why. Okay, and you really didn't know why. I mean, everybody was fighting.
I've seen a lot of people address this in this issue, and some address it in anger, which is hard not to do. Others address this issue in fear. I address this in faith because I believe in the power of the human spirit. And I believe that we have a tremendous amount of authority over this earth when we exercise it. And just the power of us collectively standing up, speaking and saying, we will not participate and we will not allow this to happen. So we ask the question, why in the world are they spraying? And the answer is quite simple, because we allow it.
Right. Yeah. If we allow it, we're doing a collective suicide on a mass level, simply by not participating and saying no to this, because this simply cannot go on. I mean, this is probably one of the worst things happening, and it's probably the least known about.
You know, a tremendous awakening is happening. And from my standpoint, now people all over are waking up. So we are making a difference, and it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. Again, I'm very hopeful that humanity collectively will stand up. For the first time, we have an issue that affects each and every living thing. So with that, we can create this unity where we collectively stand up and say, no, we're going to create the future that we want for ourselves and for our children. And that future, for me, includes clean water and fresh air to breathe.
Yeah, and just the right to live out our lives, because we've been systematically disempowered. And we've allowed this to happen. We've given over our power to governments, to religions, to corporations, to organizations. And now we're starting to see that we need to take responsibility so we can respond with ability to some of these things that are happening. Do what you can do. Make documentaries, spread the word and everything. And at the same time...
Kiss off, I got to say, it sounds like you've got a terrible habit there. You know, smoking all them there things. That's one habit you got to quit, Kiss off. It's just, you got to quit it.
Do the inner work of transforming your consciousness to a higher level, because whatever the problem is that we're talking about, we really don't know what the answer is yet, because it's going to come from a higher level of consciousness. But we've got to slow this thing down so it doesn't destroy us before we can get to the point of transformation.
Why is that jet flying so close to our house? At last, those planes are flying where they belong.
That's right. Over the homes of poor people.
Oh, it's you, Stan. What kind of favor?
I abused my CIA powers to make that superstorm.
You made this storm? Lives were destroyed.
Now kiss, you two lovebirds, and put some mustard on it.
Aren't you straight? Yes, but I'm terrified of these people. They can control the weather.
Yeah. Wouldn't be that damn terrified. No, that's you, William.
This is a wildfire. This is a deliberate targeting of buildings with absolutely nothing happening around them. The trees are fine, absolutely fine.
But how do the trees stay with the fire being so intense it melts the cars? How do the trees not get burned if this was a fire?
This did not come from the forest fire. All the nano aluminum particles in the buildings and soil after years of drought, years of chemical trails overhead, not to mention the plasma cloud cover laid 3 days in advance of this debacle. See right here, all of the trees are fine.
Looks like we're being poisoned, they're spraying, and especially around the sun. So what I want to do is I want to get a clear view of where they're poisoning at, and why are they concentrating around where the sun is. We're going to have some answers, we're going to do some interviews, we're going to get down to it. You look here, here's the sun, and you can clearly see this crap that they're spraying on us. If you look in the sky, I mean, it's horrible. How can people deny this? I have no idea. It's just, God don't, what do they say? God don't make straight lines. So it's just simple things like this is horrible. Do you think that our government would actually spray shit on us? Do you trust them? Or do you
trust the government personally, just for the fact you don't know what they're doing undercover. You don't know what type of undercover hints they hiding from us from the media or cover-ups they using. You don't really know unless they telling you, and you can't really trust what they tell you just for the fact you don't know whether it's a lie or the truth.
Right.
So from that being said,
you think all the autistic kids with the vaccines and the stuff they put in our food, and you think all the people who have asthma that have trouble breathing, and you look up at this crap in the sky. I mean,
polluting our air. I mean, how are we gonna breathe? How are we gonna live healthy if we gotta breathe the stuff and the toxins that's being dropped down on us, and which we're being lied upon?
What do you think the goal is that they're doing it for?
Experiments.
Control the population, maybe?
Experiments, control the population. Right. Mess with our heads, think we going crazy, maybe.
Right.
Believe what they want.
Thank you so much, my friend. And think for a minute, not what you're told to think, but just open your eyes and think. And when you do that, when you open your eyes and you use your mind and you think for yourself, you may be surprised what you see. And then when you find out what you see, what will it take to empower other people, to raise their consciousness and their awareness of what's going on? Because that's what we're going to do. That's what I plan on doing. Because there's no other choice. You can't know what's going on. You can't know what's going on and then do nothing. Because then, in my opinion, if you know what's going on and you do nothing, you're just as guilty as the ones who do.
The pictures look odd. The formations don't look like normal clouds that people have seen before historically. This is another type of man-made cloud, and what we have done and what you're seeing here is we have the photographs from the times that the jet leaves the first trail as a thin, spindly trail to where they form into these different types of cloud formations. All of you can start looking up and seeing this. The United States government, NASA, the U.S. Air Force, is sending up canisters into the atmosphere filled with chemicals. We create experiments which they can see through these persistent jet contrails as they stay in the sky for long periods of time, and they can watch the experiments. The type of chemicals they are using are aluminum, barium, strontium, but there's beginning to be more and more seen across the United States and elsewhere where aluminum, trimethyl aluminum experiments to make clouds are beginning to impact us. The reason I am concerned for agriculture is that none of these experiments have any public oversight nor agricultural oversight. Our drinking water is impacted because the chemicals are now beginning to show up in our drinking water. In California, the State Department of Health drinking water tests were examined between 1970 and this year, and we found unusual spiking in barium, aluminum, strontium. The skies that you see up here, it is important to note, have a white haze to them. When crossing the United States 2 days ago, we saw this man-made produced haze all the way across the United States. There were a few real clouds, and the skies in the white haze looked a lot like this.
Chemtrails are constantly denied by the mainstream media, even though there's official government papers and documents about chemtrails. Even NASA puts out information about them on their website. It's very strange to me that people still try to reject the existence of chemtrails. Give me a break. There's so much data online about chemtrails and what they call geoengineering and solar radiation management, or SRM. It's not natural, and it's obvious to see. All you gotta do is look up. When they're spraying in your area, the sky is filled with these chemical cocktails, long-lasting trails that spread out into a hazy mist and slowly fall to the ground. And they work in many different ways. This is a multifaceted operation. The most common chemicals in these trails are aluminum, strontium, barium, and lithium. But there are many more metal nanoparticulates as well, like copper, selenium, iron, chromium, titanium, nickel, tin, etc. They are used to control the weather, they destroy soil and ruin crops, they contaminate the water, they help fuel wildfires. Research smart dust, they're dispersing that in the air as well. They poison the population and fill us with these metals. They even spread viruses and experiment on us. Sometimes it's like, are they terraforming the earth in order to create an environment that's suitable for demons or the Antichrist? I know how it sounds, but it's just something to think about. Anyway, these chemtrails work synergistically with 5G cell phone towers and smart meters. The frequencies emitted by these towers can activate and manipulate the metals that fill our bodies. This is all part of the NWO agenda to set up a giant, inescapable command control grid that eliminates all privacy and allows the manipulators to surveil every single person on the plane at all times. Perfect conditions for the coming one world order. This technology can help control our minds, weaken us, make us sick, and ultimately depopulate the world. If there was ever a time for activists to step up in the name of freedom, truth, health, privacy, and sovereignty, now is the time. We are constantly under attack, and we should do our best to keep spreading awareness. Most people are absolutely oblivious to what's happening. So share this video and also check out other videos here on Hibbler Productions. My name is ODD, and a link to my channel will be in the description. Until next time, keep killing the programming and never sleep again. I wish you the best. Take care.
Like a doctor that's handing out riddles to everyone. What in the world are they spraying up there in the air? It's aluminum, lithium, barium, nobody.
And that's the name of that one. Buff says, y'all got a fire in Texas? I saw. Yeah, it's way up in the Panhandle, though, Buff. It's a long ways from me. A long ways from me. But anyway, yeah, that's about as far from me as Tennessee is. So, you know, I mean, when you add all the states up and the size and all. So just saying, it's, you know, for me, and that fire, it ain't nothing to worry about. I feel for the people that's up there in it. But, you know, for me, I'm safe, at least from that. Man, I'll tell you what, it got so cold in here just a little while ago that I had to jump up and turn the heater on and close the windows and all that good stuff, because this next cold front they've been talking about now for a week or so just blew through here. I hate it. Man, I hate it. But I can't get them to close that darn door off to the north. So I guess we'll just have to live like it is. But anyway, that's the story of my life. And guys, my RSO is starting to kick in. I don't even know how much longer I'll be able to talk. So I'm going to call it tonight. I have got another video I was really wanting to show, but I'd never make it through it. So we'll save it for the next time. And thank you, Buff, for again for sending me all those great videos. I appreciate you, my friend. And you know, let me see. At least there's actually a huge snowstorm behind all the tornadoes. Oh, really? Oh yeah, out in it's kind of around Iowa, Indiana, and along in there. Yeah, where the tornadoes are. Yeah, I've seen that. You're certainly welcome, Mountain Aviator. Gentlemen. Well, when you say gentleman, you're not talking to William here, are you? I mean, William's not a gentleman. William's a gentle boy. Just playing, William. Yeah, I love you too, Chris Cat. And you take care of yourself. Well, thank you guys for all jumping in here and joining me and hanging out. I definitely appreciate it. Love you too, Kiss Off. Oh, okay. Ryan Hall. Yeah. Ryan Hall, the weather guy. And thank you, Miss Minder Sue, for the contribution tonight. You know, for everything, for being here more than anything else. I really appreciate you guys being here and watching. I honestly do. And I love you, Miss Karen. Y'all all have a great, wonderful week. And I believe me, I'm hoping and praying I have the energy and everything to get back on every night this week. But I ain't promising nothing because I don't know. But I definitely want to. I mean, Buff's got me pretty well stocked up on videos, you know, so I don't even have to look for them, you know, but at least not right now. I still do, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, you know, I don't really have to because Buff has sent me quite a few. Try not smoking dicks. Same to you, Buff. Good night, everybody. Y'all all have a great, blessed upcoming week. And thanks for watching. I certainly appreciate all y'all. Good night, everybody. We'll see y'all on the next night. I hope to be back tomorrow night. I'm going to try to be. If not, we'll see y'all whenever the next one is. Good night, everybody.